Buck Show.
It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The West Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in on another glorious Wednesday afternoon. It is Tuesday, August 25th, 2021, and today's show is going to be legendary. I said it out loud, legendary, absolutely unbelievable. Wherever you are, I cannot thank you enough for being here with us today. Whether you're watching along on YouTube or Facebook or listening to this podcast after the fact, we can't thank you enough for spending your afternoon with us, talking drag racing and doing our part to grow and build the sport we all know and love. As always, Mike Carpenter and Murder Tundra join me for hours 1 and 2 of the West Buck Show. And I got to say, this might be the biggest show we've ever done. Maybe, dare I say it, the show of all shows. I think it might be. I honestly think, here we go. I've done this once before. I think this might be the biggest show, the biggest drag racing show in the history of the known universe. There, I said it. It's out there. We got to live with it now. Now we got to try to live up to it. It's going to be a rough one trying to live up to that billing, but I truly believe that we are delivering the goods here today. Pulling up my notes. Today, we'll be joined by the one and only Stevie Fast Jackson. Without question, amongst the most beloved characters our sport has to offer, and I believe an equally accomplished racer who's done it all, seen it all when it comes to fast door slammer drag racing. At 3 p.m., we'll be joined by the greatest drag racer of all time. The greatest drag racer of all time. That's right, the GOAT, Mr. 16-time champion, the biggest name in the business, John frickin' Force. We'll head toward the finish line today at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time when Mustang drag racing world champion, small tire world champion, all things world champion. I think this cat has more titles to his credit than the aforementioned John Force. I think that's true. I think he's won like 17 world championships. I really do. And he's an undeniable star of the Street Outlaws No Prep Kings franchise. That's right, the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Murillo. First, though, I got to bring the boys on here, and let's get into this week's really big questions. Mike, brother, what do you got for us here today? I know that there's a lot going on in the drag racing world right now. I mean, it seems like there's a race going on. There's like 10 going on at once. What do you want to talk about today? What do you got for us?
Man, a ton. We better get this in right now because once we have Stevie and John Force on, yes. I don't know that we're gonna get any more airtime.
We ain't gonna get in a word in edgewise from here.
When you were starting with the man, the myth, the legend, Mike, I thought that's when you were bringing me in. So I got a little confused.
Well, I was thinking about
Murillo. I got you. Okay.
Fine. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah,
you're close. I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. I took a shot of vodka before we started. I did. I just polished off an airplane bottle of, I was just like, man, I am revved up. Like I'm on 150,000 RPM. The rods are going to be hanging out of this thing pretty quickly. The valves are floating. I had to take that.
It gets pretty hairy. And this is a pretty big show. This thing's kind of on a upward trajectory right now. Wouldn't you say?
Man, I really do. I mean, it's, we've been doing this for a long time. Murder Tundra and I have been going live on Wednesday afternoons for something like, I don't know, several years. And the evolution of this whole thing has been really amazing to be a part of. It's an exciting thing. I feel, and that the word is evolution, because we've been telling the stories of drag racers on the pages of Drag Illustrated Magazine, on dragillustrated.com, across our social channels for 15 years now. Believe it or not, we're sending our 170th issue of Drag Illustrated Magazine to print this week. But this platform, the West Buck Show on YouTube, on Facebook, all these cut down clips that our production team, Dion, Walrath, Blake Fontenelle, everybody are working together to spread the gospel of drag racing, man. I feel like we're hitting a new gear, a newfound, a renewed energy, a renewed commitment. And I'm genuinely excited about it, man. And I appreciate you two being a part of it.
Weeks kind of refocused everything and, and went through a lot to kind of revamp the show, I guess. Right.
I mean, I think so. Right. I mean, and it's not like we're doing anything. This is how we do stuff. Right. And we kind of had conversations where, I mean, I don't mean to say this. I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I really feel like all the cool stuff that's happening in drag racing, we got a hand in. I mean, I'm proud of it. Like we do cool stuff. We have fun. We throw parties. We put on big races. We do all these things. And I felt like it was time to take that same approach and that same level of commitment, that same attention to detail, and attention to detail that really, I'm going to give it to Mike right here. I'm going to give it to Carp. Carpenter introduced that attention to detail and that aesthetic focus to Drag Illustrated magazine 12, 13 years ago when Mike came on board and took over the graphic design role at Drag Illustrated. Now he runs the company essentially, but his initial attention to detail and the way we laid out the magazine, and this dude would stay up all night worried about font selections on the cover and all these different things. And I'm excited to take that level of focus and attention to detail and apply it to this show and see where we're going, bro. Because I think we're just getting started. I truly believe we are just getting started.
And we like shooting the shit with our buddies, and that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, this feels like this feels like at the PRI show in the what's the name of the bar, JT? In the
JW Marriott, man, that's my jam.
They kind of run and hide every time we walk in there and they see JT.
Do. No, what they do is they get their little credit card receiving machine out because they know what's about to happen. They're like, here you go, sir. You want to go ahead and put the insert chip here because we know what's about to happen, man. Mike,
it's a Drag Illustrated credit card, not JT's credit card.
That's a fact. However, I'm going to throw this out here, though.
Credit card.
I'm going to throw this out here. In the history, I've been in business for myself now for over 15 years. I had various business opportunities or deals that happened before the magazine, but JT, in all my years, he's one of the only guys that's involved in this whole deal that is quick to pay his own way. I mean, I'm really impressed with it. And I think it's, I don't know that he's necessarily trying to be a super great guy or anything, but he also knows that like someone's going to be mad about this. Like there's no possible way I can order 47 Coronas or whatever and charge it on the Drag Illustrated card and not have to hear or not get a phone call from Nancy. Like you're going to get a phone call.
He wants to make sure we have enough to print the next issue because it could really get hairy if it goes all on the DI card. But let's jump into it, guys. Let's talk about Brainerd. Let's jump right into talking about Brainerd. This race, we were worried about this race going into the weekend, weren't we? Things we had heard, we had seen the car counts. They really, it's almost an odd event when we don't have pro stock or pro stock motorcycle. You just have the nitro classes and pro mod. I kind of felt like the little ride back up the track for Stevie or for Steve Torrance and for Matt Hagan was kind of lonely. It's just those two guys in there, right? They're missing a few other winners. We talk all the time that drag racing has too many winners, but when you see just those two, it's kind of jarring because it's not what we're used to seeing. But Hagan wins again. Torrance now has won at every track on tour, which is just incredible. Pro mod kind of collapsing in a way.
I think that's fair.
And a little concern there, but the fans turn out in droves. So this race, tell me if I'm wrong here, but do you think that this furthers the notion that it's about more than the on-track product? We were looking at entry lists. We were looking at how many cars were going to be there, but people are there because it's the only chance for people in that region to go to a national event. It draws from the Canadian border, COVID notwithstanding. And of course you have the zoo. So there's a lot going on there. It's a beautiful area. I've never been there. I know you've had some experiences there. I hear it's an amazing track, an amazing area. So was this more proof based on what we saw from the stands that it's about more than just what's on track?
I think this is one of those races, Mike, it's like an experiential type of thing. I have been to Brainerd to the zoo a handful of times, and for an NHRA national event. And I mean, first and foremost, the fan base there is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, they are rabid, they're knowledgeable. They don't get to see this level of drag racing very often. They don't get a bunch of, there's not a bunch of match races or other events. Like, the NHRA rolls into, let's say, Charlotte area or to Virginia Motorsports Parks, and pro mods race there all the time, and high level racing happens there all the time. Not the case at our friendly Brainerd International Raceway up there in Minnesota. This is a real, kind of treat for these guys. But to your point, Mike, it's as much a party, I think, as anything else. It's like a 40-acre campground, and I'm just kind of pulling that number out of thin air, but I think I've heard that somewhere along the lines, and it is packed full of people that have been coming to this race year after year after year after year, and it's an incredible thing to see. And to be honest, I was a little heartbroken this weekend when I looked at, I don't want to pour salt on an open wound necessarily, but it felt like a real low point. That's how I felt. I found myself I typically watch you've heard me right here on this show many times. I watch an NHRA broadcast from Norwalk earlier this year, and I came on this show going, I'm walking around, my chest stuck out. Like, I am so proud of our sport. I am so proud of the show we put on. I am so proud of the entertainment value, the on-track product, but everything else, right? And this weekend, unfortunately, and I think we owe it to our viewers to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed in us. I felt bad. I felt like we let them down. I felt like we dropped the ball. I look at that entry list, and I know hotels are high, airfare's high, travel is expensive right now, more so than ever before. Travel's difficult now, more so than ever before. But I got to tell you, looking at an entry list that had, I'm not here to have an argument, 9, 10, 11 cars in Top Fuel, a dozen funny cars, 7 Pro Mod cars. Thank God for the Mountain Motor Pro Stock guys that came out 7 strong and really added to the show. But that whole situation was it's crazy because it's bittersweet is what it is. You see Clay Millican and Steve Torrance go toe-to-toe in an epic final round. I don't know that we'll see a better final round in 2021. Like, I don't know that you're going to get a better drag race than we got there. The show afterwards, fist bumping, hugging one another. The whole thing was just, you could feel the emotion. You could feel that these are two guys that are not hateful rivals, but they're friendly competitors. They have a relationship away from the track. I know that the Torrance camp, the Capco boys, have been trying to lend a little bit of a hand to some of the other teams in the field to elevate the competition level across the entire eliminator. It was a fantastic moment in that regard, but bittersweet that there wasn't, it just felt like we fell short. It really did. It felt like we fell short. And I got to ask, the question, I kind of want to throw this to you, Mike, with another question. Does NHRA take any responsibility for a situation like this? Because I know in the past, my experience as a race promoter, Mike, it's burning up phone lines. It's making promises. It's finding out what I got to do to make sure XYZ guys coming. I'm on the phone, whether it was the World Series of Pro Mod in Denver, 17, 18, and 19, whether it was the World Door Slammer Nationals in 20 and 21, whether it was the Eddyville Pro Outlaw Heads Up Drag Racing Series that I put together in 2005. I spent my days and weeks leading up to these events on the phone going, hey, man, what do I got to do to get you to come? Do I got to change a rule? Do I got to buy you a hotel room? What do I got to do to get you here? And I know maybe people don't want to hear those things because they think everybody's just going to roll out for the competition, the environment, or whatever, the opportunity to go race against the best. But man, you gotta make these guys and gals feel desired. You've got to reach out. And I just wonder, is that happening? Because if it were, I don't think that we would have these situations.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about this every week. That's what these other series are doing. That's different. And I think NHRA, they may be doing some of that, but if we just don't hear about it a lot, and they've never had to. It's like they're out of practice on that. I think it goes back to, and maybe this is something we can talk to John about when we have him on, sort of the evolution of the sport to this eliminator style that NHRA has, that it's like, we're the only game in town, come run our deal, or you're not on the big stage. These other stages are really creeping up, especially when it comes to Pro Mod and door car racing. And I think that the schedule plays into it as well. Pro Mod has been a tough game always, but it's been especially tough this year. And there's been some carnage, there's been rule changes, there's been a lot going on there. And now you've got these guys towing to, upper Minnesota, which I didn't even know. Honestly, I'm from the South, so we stay focused on the drag racing that's around here.
You don't even know about Brainerd.
I didn't even know where Brainerd, Minnesota is. I looked it up on the map to figure out how close this place is to the Canadian border.
You're throwing messages in our group chat like,
yeah.
Is this like a vacation destination? Like, I'm not at all aware of why I'm going to Brainerd or why I would want.
I mean,
to
I've
go
always
to
heard about it, but that's a question also that we wanted answered is how did it come about that we have a national event in Brainerd, Minnesota? Nothing against Minnesota, Brainerd, that whole area, but it isn't interesting that we have national events in, metropolitan areas or whatever you want to call it, and then we have national events in places like that.
I've got a hot take on this, and I've got to get it out of my soul, and that's that NHRA is entirely too reliant on the goodwill of racers. They're entirely too reliant on the goodwill of sponsors that exist throughout our country, throughout our industry, throughout this community. They're entirely too reliant on these track operators. They go to the well so frequently, and I find it troubling because what I feel is happening, what I feel like I'm seeing is the NHRA starting to run low on goodwill, right? Starting to run low on the ability to like phone a friend or get someone to go above and beyond on their behalf.
That's kind of what you're relying on when you are running a pro mod class, making rule changes. And I'm not here to argue the rule change, but the timing of it and all that stuff. And then ask them to tow to Brainerd, Minnesota. I see Aaron Van Heel in the comments said Stevie Fast told me he couldn't tell me where he was on a map if he showed him. So, I mean, and because that's just a foreign land for pro mods, really. And so you're asking these guys to go do that 2 weeks before the biggest race of the year. And so I'm curious to see how this affects Indy. Is there going to be a carryover effect, a hangover from having these guys have to tow there? Is it going to draw down the car count of Indy? It just seems to me that, especially for Pro Mod, I wouldn't have had those guys go there 2 weeks before Indy. That's just me. But I mean, there's a lot.
I don't know that you can get away with it in this moment in time. And I know we've got to wrap this up and move on to our next question before we get our first guest on here, Stevie Jackson, joining us at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. But I want to interject that I think that one of the takeaways for me, and I had this conversation with a very big time guy, a dude that's involved with a company that sponsors multiple cars, multiple events. I mean, it has a huge hand, very much an invested party in the sport of drag racing. And he said to me that what he's feeling as a sponsor is that NHRA doesn't recognize that all of these events, maybe not all of them, but there are events that have to be treated differently. Right? Like maybe you have to pay more in Denver. Maybe you have to pay more in Brainerd. Maybe you have to provide a little bit of tow money across the board. Maybe you got to earmark, $100,000 for some diesel fuel for your top fuel guys and $100,000 for some diesel fuel for your funny car guys when it comes to Brainerd, because we owe it to these fans to put on a hell of a show. And I don't think it's fair to expect them to understand that's just the way of the world right now, guys. Times are tough. That's unrealistic. That's not fair. That's not what Amazon's going to do. If you don't get what you ordered from Amazon, they're going to send you it back. They're going to send it for free. And Amazon and things like that, companies like that, they kind of set the expectation here in 2021. Can you imagine the NFL coming to us next week saying, you know what? COVID's tough. A lot of these teams are struggling. No, not everybody's got great doctor staff. So you know what? We're just going to run the NFL season this year with half the teams. You know what? And I'm not sure if we're probably going to have a couple buys in the playoffs this year. I apologize for that. Make sure you tune in next year and we'll try to do better. That's bananas. I mean,
what about ticket holders, the ticket holders and the fans? I mean, it just, how do you sell that to them?
You can't do it. I mean, you literally cannot do it. It's not fair. And I think it's and it's why we were perpetually in this position as a sport, because we're always playing from behind like this. Now we got to win all these guys back over. We got to convince them that it's going to be a good use of their money to buy tickets for the NHRA national event next summer at Brainerd International Raceway. Hey, give us another chance. I know this year wasn't great. Give us another chance. And putting making it the racer's fault, it's not the racer's fault. It's not the racer's problem. It's the NHRA's problem. And there's a fairly obvious solution, in my opinion. Throw some money at these guys, ring some phones, find out what we got to do, because I feel we owe it to our fans to put on a certain level of show. And that means full fields, no buys.
Do you think that's happening now this week? I mean, what do you think the NHRA is thinking going into Indy? Indy? Are they confident? Is it going to bounce back up? I mean,
I'm worried about it because
in my opinion, like, what if they had another Brainerd type event on the schedule, and then it wasn't the biggest race of the year? I think that they're fortunate to have the biggest race of the year coming up this week or next week.
Thank God that they do have the biggest race of the year next week. I mean, I honestly think that I'm not sure, Mike. I have a couple of concerns about it. I know we got to move on. Dion and Murder Tundra are both in my ear that we've got to move on to the next topic. But I will say that my big fear here is that we go to Indy, there's 20 pro mods, there's 20 funny cars, there's 20 top fuelers, and we all think there's not a problem, right? Because that's what will happen. We'll all go to Indy. The car count will be better, right? It's relatively centrally located. It's the biggest drag race in the world. No arguments. There's there's Wally's on. It's Labor Day weekend. Wally's up for grabs. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm sure it will be a barn burner. God, I truly hope it's not a replication of what we just saw in Brainerd. I believe we'll see things trend back the right direction. I'm genuinely concerned about Pro Mod, but I almost hope, I would rather it be a continuation of Brainerd. I know this sounds horrible. I would rather see it be a continuation of Brainerd and see us.
That's the most pessimistic thing Wes Buck has ever said.
It is, I know, but I mean,
I'm worried about you, man.
I just wonder if everything's roses in Indy, no one's going to think there's a problem. No one's going to feel the pressure. And I mean, I know what that's like. You need at times to feel the pressure to be forced to make a change. And I think the NHRA needs to feel the pressure to be forced to make a change, because if pro mods show up in droves, pro stocks show up in droves, we got pro stock bikes everywhere, funny cars and top fuel cars, and Indy's this huge success, which I want it to be. I hope they make all the money in the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying for the long-term future of the sport, we have to be forced to address these problems. Next question. And I think this one is JT reading this one or am I? I think I'm doing this question, right, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there were 3 different Pro Mod drag racing series going on over the weekend. 3 different events. We had the NHRA, obviously E3 Spark Plugs Pro Mod drag racing series presented by J&A Service going on at Brainerd. We just talked about that. We also had the Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod Association roll into Maryland International Raceway. And we had the Midwest Drag Racing Series roll into Great Bend, Kansas, which is an event that I took in myself, a really incredible experience we will talk about a little bit later in the show. Question, Mike. Are all these options good for Pro Mod as a whole, or do you think splitting these cars up is potentially problematic?
I think at one point it was problematic when I think that everyone's ultimate goal was to run NHRA Pro Mod, or you wanted to keep everyone as like a subset of NHRA Pro Mod to where they could go run that at any time. But I think it's gotten so specialized, and guys that are running PDRA or Midwest Pro Mod or Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod, especially since it's gone to 8th Mile now as well. They've got cars, they've got setups. They're staying around home. They're not going NHRA Pro Mod racing. So I think everyone's gotten their little niche. I think you maybe will see some trickle down or some pull from, let's say a PDRA race to a Carolina Extreme Pro Mod race at Darlington. I think you may see someone opt to go race an event like that rather than to try to go run an NHRA Pro Mod race or any other type of series. So I think that, to answer your question, we've always worried about splintering the class, about there being too many options. But I think that the class has kind of adapted to it, and I actually think that it's working right now. I don't think that it's actually a problem.
I think these regional series may be where it's at, to be honest with you. If done correctly, if I had my ability to like swoop in and change the rules or whatever, I would see them all running relatively close rules, and we would see people be able to bounce around a little bit. Like if I could wave a magic wand, I would take all these smaller sanctions and series that exist all across the country, and I would be doing whatever I could to create kind of a feeder league, some organic growth opportunities for the NHRA Pro Mod series, where instead of having one NHRA Pro Mod race going on a weekend, we would have, the NHRA US Nationals on Labor Day weekend, but they may also be running a Midwest event somewhere, or a Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod event somewhere, or a West Coast event, and we're all running the same rules. We're all using the same measuring stick. People can compare themselves. That's what racers used to do. You used to pick up Drag Review magazine, you'd open to the back, you'd see where Scotty Cannon qualified, and you would kind of compare your program. Even though you may never line up and race Scotty Cannon, you would kind of measure yourself against those guys. And I think by having this I hate to say it, but there's really no other way to do it. It's so bastardized that every group's got their own thing and they do it their own way. And if we could ever have like a real mature, grown-up adult conversation about this stuff and say, hey, if we really want to see this particular class of drag racing, which I believe to be the universal language of drag racing, I've gotten off this soapbox a little bit lately, but I'm about to fire it back up. I spent some time this weekend. I got the hammer and nails out and I rebuilt it. I shined it up. I had the kids paint it. The soapbox is coming back. And Pro Mod is the universal language of drag racing. They run these cars around the globe, right? They still look like cars. They're driven by characters. They're fast. They're out of control. They look like Hot Wheels, right? They run them in the Middle East. They run them in Australia. They run them in Russia. They run them all throughout Europe. They run them all over the United States and Canada. It's such an incredible class of drag racing, but I see it a little bit like boxing, where there's this version, the ABF heavyweight title, the UBF world heavyweight title. There's 75 different variations of it, and it just gets diluted over the course of time. And I know that I got a little bit off topic, but my point is that I'm with you. I think all these sanctions and series are fantastic for the sport of drag racing. They had an incredible field of cars up there at the Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod Association event at Maryland. Freddie Scriba goes like bottom 370s with a nitrous car, probably one of the best looking cars in drag racing. The Sorcerer, that car is stunningly beautiful.
He's super impressive with that car. I don't think he races it a ton.
No.
But when he goes to like a PDRA race, he's right there with him, with those guys, with the top of it. And then he goes to these races, the Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod deal. And he's always, I can remember doing the top 8 in the back of the magazine. And
shout out to one of the coolest sections in Drag Illustrated magazine.
Yeah, he was always in there. He's just kind of like a dark horse guy that you don't think about.
Well, and they had a blower versus nitrous final. I mean, it was fantastic. Chuck Olshan, a blown 68 Camaro going up against, a nitrous car. That's exactly what we're looking for. Myself, I took in the Midwest Drag Racing Series event, Great Bend, Kansas. We talked about SRCA Drag Strip, their Pro Mod division. Same thing, man. 16 cars, incredible. I mean, there was like 10 of them that were separated by, I think, 46 thousandths. I mean, bottom 370s to mid 370s, nitrous cars, blower cars, screw blower cars, pro charger cars, turbocharged cars. I'm not sure if I said that, which is basically becoming non-existent in the sport of drag racing right now, turbocharged pro mods. Joey Oaksis wins the damn thing in his dad's blue 67 Mustang GT500. That's a twin turbo car. I mean, it was fantastic. Turbo car versus a nitrous car. It really is a fantastic time to be alive, a fantastic time for the sport of drag racing. Always got to admit there's room for improvement. We have always got opportunities to tweak and turn things, but it really is a pretty spectacular time. And I guess to answer that question and move into the next segment of the show, personally, I think this is what Pro Mod has done for the sport of drag racing. It's the only... They don't have variations, all these little funny car series. They don't have all sorts of little pro stock series. They don't have all sorts of little top fuel series. They don't have all sorts of little pro stock motorcycle series. This is unique to Pro Mod. Mm-hmm. What this class has done for the sport of drag racing, it can't be overstated.
I think the way it's grown from a grassroots class, kind of an outlaw deal, into the universal language of drag racing, into an NHRA Pro Mod or an NHRA professional class. I think that's why it maintains that uniqueness. But now that we've bagged on NHRA Pro Mod for 30 minutes, do you want to bring Stevie on?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're about to be joined by someone that I believe is doing as much for the sport of drag racing right now as anyone alive. He's basically done it all when it comes to Door Slammer drag racing, every big radial race, back-to-back NHRA Pro Mod championships, a fan following that I believe rivals anyone in our sport right now. It's an incredible thing. Let's give it up, ladies and gentlemen. I want some golf claps for the one and only Stevie Fast Jackson. What's up, big dog? Oh, there it is. There it is, man. You've been in the gym, dude.
Always, man. I'm old. So if you're going to keep racing when you're old, you got to work out a lot.
Are you still doing CrossFit?
Yeah, I drop in when I'm on the road, here and there. Yeah, but most of the time, CrossFit like workout.
Yeah, I can tell, man. You're looking lean and mean. This isn't the question that I wrote down, and all these guys that are in my ear are about to kill me because I'm going to derail this damn thing in minute 30. Minute 1.
Fitness and nutrition.
I'm gonna derail this thing.
Drag racing and no prep. Let's talk about meal prep.
Let's talk about meal prep. But seriously, is that just where drag racing and even Door Slammer drag racing is right now? You've got to treat yourself like an athlete. I mean, you can't be in there. I mean, we talk about it all the time, these guys that can't get their car to weight because of these guys.
I would love to be able to like eat a cheeseburger every day. But if Billy Stockland sees me walking around with like a ham sandwich, he's like, "Hey, what you gonna do with that? Like, you taking that somewhere? You're not gonna eat that, are you?" Because our car
was a bite.
ounces overweight at the end of the last run. It's so competitive now. Like, if you're not a smaller frame driver, you're at a disadvantage. You'll see guys that are big, muscular guys, tall guys that run well. But at the end of the day, a lot of our races are decided by less than 10 thou. And quarter-mile racing, 5 pounds is more than 10 thou. So it's pretty competitive. I treat it like it's a profession.
I think it's spectacular, man. I really do.
It's a pain in the ass because I like fried chicken and booze. I am from the South.
Yes.
So, hey, when I get old and retire, my goal is to be about 475.
Well, hey, man, speaking of goals, I know we all kind of feel, I think we fell short a little bit this past weekend at Brainerd International Raceway. Not what we wanted to see in terms of car count, but watching the show, looking at pictures, hearing from people such as yourself, what an incredible reception from the fan base there. I believe this was your first time ever in that part of the country, ever at Brainerd International Raceway. Stevie, but before we do any, dissecting what's going on for the hardcores that follow this show, can you just take us through what it was like to go to a part of the country like that, race there, and the reception you received?
Man, it was, it's kind of like racing in Denver at the World Series of Pro Mod. You see these beautiful tracks and these landscapes, but you don't ever go there. Doesn't make good financial sense to go there. It's far away. But then, you complain about it. I whined about it that being on the schedule the whole time because of how much it costs us to go. Then you get out there and you see people that have been camping in a campground for 10 days waiting for you to get there. You got families bring their kids up who have never seen a pro modified. I cannot tell you how many times, dozens of times, I got asked the question from casual fans, can you explain the mechanical differences between a pro stock and a pro mod car? We've seen pro stock run. We've never seen you guys. And these are people that get it. These are hardcore, passionate fans. And, when you go through and explain it to them, if you look on my Facebook or Instagram and look at the pictures of the stands, that was while pro mod was running. That was not when fuel cars were running or anything else. The place was packed. It's off the chain. The scenery is beautiful. I hope we continue to keep it on the schedule. If you've never seen the zoo, I can't describe it to you. And I don't mean to put it lightly or too much, but I'm just telling you, there are people that they still have not found that are still lost in the zoo.
Oh, that's a fact, bro. I mean, that's literally
a serious party deal. There's a Napa inside the track. So if you need a belt for your generator, you go.
They got one.
Napa.
They've got a speed shop there, man. And to your point, people live there. They've got to be able to rebuild their minivan that they cut the roof off of and put a stripper pole in the back of. I mean, they need a parts store.
I saw more stuff last week that I can never talk about that you could never imagine. If you ever been to, I'm a football fan. If you ever went to a Georgia-Florida game in the 90s, in Jacksonville, it's worse than that. It is awesome. Whether we race there again or not, I am going there next year to be a spectator. I want to go be a spectator. I'm going to give me a Groucho beard. I'm going to give me a hat. Nobody will know who I am. I'm just going in hot, coming in hot.
Do you think that, how good is it for you to be reminded? And I talk about this a lot, but and you're someone who has a worldwide following. You've been at these races and had someone come up and say, hey, I'm here from Sweden to see you, or I'm here from wherever to see you. But don't you think it's good to be reminded how much this stuff means to people every once in a while? Because I think we become jaded and we forget a little that, man, there are people that are, to your point, camping out to see us do this. There are people that are sitting out in 100-degree weather to see us do this. Holy crap.
Almost one time every event, if not every single event. Now I want you to ask Billy Stockland or one of my guys. In one of the opening rounds of qualifying, I will key up a radio and I will tell them to look up at the stands and quit looking down the racetrack and realize why we are here.
I got goosebumps.
It gives me goosebumps. I had a kid this weekend, 16-year-old kid, come up, taller than me. And his dad brings him up and he's got on an old KTR visor, like an old one, faded. We're talking about 2000. 9-ish area. I gave that visor to this kid at a race sometime way back when, and he's been waiting to get it signed. And like, how do you compete with that? Like, what the car?
Where do we go from here?
You have the opportunity to inspire somebody to follow drag racing for a couple years. So like that, stuff like that, like tears my heartstrings up. I wear my heart on my sleeves, but the passion, we cannot, as motorsports enthusiasts, as an industry, as sponsors and manufacturers, ignore the fact that we have to chase how to make fans passionate, and that matters in what we do. How many times have you heard me say that it does not matter what the car runs? How many times?
10,000. Yeah.
Right. Because it doesn't matter what the car runs. It matters about the people in the cars. And it was a really cool thing, and I can't wait to do it.
You're singing our song, Stevie. We've been talking about this. I mean, honestly, it's the reason Drag Illustrated Magazines exists. I remember looking at my desk, right? I was at my parents' house. I was like 18. All these magazines I'm looking at, they all got cars on the cover of them. Right. And I thought to myself, like, man, Rolling Stone would never put a guitar on the cover or a drum or a cymbal, right? Sports Illustrated would never put a basketball or a baseball, or so. I guess they might have put a flat football on it after the whole Deflategate thing. But my point is that they put the people that use these instruments on the cover, right? It's not about the guitar, it's about the guitar player. And that's what I see in drag racing. And we've committed our lives to it. Like everybody on this show right now, we spent the last 15 years trying to put faces to the vinyl letters on those windows, trying to put faces to the names, because I believe the only way we're going to get this sport where I believe it can go and should be right now is by celebrating superstars such as yourself and letting people get to know you. And, in fairness, decide whether they love or hate you, because that's what I'm after. I'm after the polarizing thing. I want people to take sides, because when you take sides, you start to care. Now you're invested, and that's how we get this sport to the next level.
The first thing I tell anybody when I get approached about running a car, a Jim Whiteley, a Marcus Burt, a J.R. Gray, Chad Henderson, any of them, the very first thing that I tell them is you need to understand that you're dealing with a guy who does not give a shit about your race car. I don't care about your engine. I don't care about your drivetrain. I care about winning, because that car is a tool to get me what I want. And if we'll all approach that like that and quit waxing the cars and talking about the cars, I agree with you 1,000%. I love anything that gets fans engaged and excited. I had a lot of people. This weekend, due to some of the circumstances going on in our motorsports, that came up and just basically cussed me out this weekend. But they came and bought a ticket to watch me fail. And if you come watch me fail, you come watch me win, and you buy a ticket to come watch drag racing, I'm winning. I don't need y'all like or hate me, but have an emotional response.
1,000,000%, man. I mean, that's the song and dance we've been singing for years, man. And it feels good to have someone of your status support that belief set, because a high tide lifts all boats, and oftentimes those high tides are created by human beings, right? That it's people that move the needles, that are willing to put themselves out there. And thank God for guys like you, Stevie. I'm curious. This has been talked about.
Neck is barely hanging on, sticking my head out in the guillotine last
You
week.
have.
Healing up. I got some stitches. It's barely hanging on.
We're going to touch on that, but before we do, I think this has been the talk of town, and I do not want to beat a dead horse. That's not what we're here to do, and I don't want to pour salt in kind of a wound that I think the entire sport is carrying around right now. But I got to get your take. Just in my opinion, in the fall of 2019, the E3 Spark Plugs NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series presented by J&A Service was at an all-time high. Full of energy and excitement and enthusiasm. This thing's headed to the moon. I don't know how many cars were in Indy that year. I think 30. Everybody's spread out all amongst the gravel and grass, there at Lucas Oil Raceway at Indianapolis. Today, not so much, man. We had 7 cars at the Brainerd National event, 9 in Denver. We obviously know there are some geographical battles that those two facilities present for racers. But can you kind of tell me where you think we are as a category right now, where Pro Mod is compared to where we were?
You want the truth, or you want the polished version?
I would really like the truth, man. I mean, because I think that's what we're here to do, is be authentic. And I don't want to put you on the spot, and I never want to put any of our guests in a compromising position, man. But these conversations have to be had.
There's nobody I'm going to offend that pays my bills, so I don't care. The reason that we're in where we are right now, first of all, before I get going down this road, and this could take 3 hours, so I hope poor John Boers, he's my hero. I hope I don't want to keep waiting. I don't think you can look at the car count in Denver and Brainerd, and I'll tell you why. One, it's the middle of the summer. Pro Mod racing quarter mile NHRA has never been well attended in the summer. For many of our, and way before me, we stopped in June and picked back up in Indy.
Yes,
that's when business people that run these cars, run their business, live their lives, take their family on vacation. So when you ask them to quit doing all that in the middle of the summer to go out and race in 95-degree heat and drive 1,800 miles to compete against it, if they're not interested in running for a championship, you're not going to ever win that battle, I don't think. Now, with that said, there's a lot going on that's hurting that. I think it leads down to a couple of things. Number one is parity. Number two, NHRA'S pretty off the rails, and hopefully we got some help coming back, but they're pretty headed out there. They took a lot of bad advice and a lot of bad information from some people who had a goal in mind. And by doing that, we allowed – if you look back at 2019, the racing was pretty close. We were destroying the field, but we were destroying our combination, not just the rest of the field. You know, we didn't have the turbos covered by forever, and we didn't have the nitro covered forever. We had even a root sports covered by forever. The turbo community got caught with their hand in the cookie jar that they've had in the cookie jar for a long time. Because of that, we needed a new combination to run because nobody wants to realize everybody to know how far in the cookie jar they are. So we let a combination come in with very little data on it. There was a couple exhibition runs run throughout the year where they ran 580s at 235 on the wood. Everybody's good to go. We're going to let this thing in. I'm told NHRA before this happened, you're not going to get any cars. You're just going to cost everybody money. When you allow a new power adder to come in without a direct, clear path of, hey, there's a guy over there that's got a Pro Charger, or there's a girl over there that's got one, all you do is make all the people that were already racing spend $350,000. So then we get this thing in there, and all we hear in 2020 is the parity's good. We're running it as hard as it'll go. In 6 runs, they took a brand new car and smashed the national record. Then they go out and we get no rule changes in 2020. It's a COVID year. You have to look at that, and I understand why they didn't hit the rules in 2020. They didn't want to lose any cars. We're barely hanging on. Everybody, including me, just excited to be racing. Don't care if you win or lose.
Yes,
just
sir.
get cars on the racetrack. So not everybody's the fault. But then you come into 2021, we don't get any change. They hit them 20% of overdrive. They go faster than they did. They add weight. They take gear away. They're hundreds of pounds heavier now, and now they're still running them hard as they go, and they still got us. It's a lot closer now. But if they would have, I hate to say Ricky Smith was right. I hope, man, one day there's somebody's going to cut that out, and they're going to have me saying Ricky.
We need to make shirts. Ricky Smith was right.
But he was right. They should bring a new combination in, a 10th back, and let them develop. So anyway, you have parity. You have a lot of guys who are not racing right now that you'll see start to come back because they've made enough changes to at least make it closer. Guys don't want to come and get beat by a 10th and a half. Like, it's expensive to come get crushed. Then you've got the auto shifter. We take the auto shifter out because we got to have safety. And then everybody starts raising Cain about it. Then we got some people saying that they can lease some cars and get some cars if we take it out. So we take it out. So we got auto shifters in there. We sell that junk. Everybody starts to get good driving them. Then we got to put it back in. You got to have some consistency on the rules. Throw in most of the useless safety stuff that's still in there, and you can't get regional cars, and it all adds up to car count. If you look at the transmission drivetrain tunnel rule, the battery cutoff switch, the CO2 bottle switch, and the fire retardant paint stuff, 3 of those 4, if there were not Turbo 400s allowed to race in NHRA, would never have even happened. Caruso's wreck, where the air bottle was empty, you could never stage a planetary drive car with no air bottle. Could not have ran down there and wrecked it. Without all the Turbo 400s leaking all over the racetrack, you don't need all the tunnel stuff. And without one bad fire where a car didn't have a fuel shut off, you don't have all the fire retardant stuff. So when you make safety rules on one-time things, you end up with a very expensive safety package that stops you from getting regional races. I'm begging NHRA right now, beating my head against the wall, trying to get a 2-race waiver for people that can come in and run a regional event or 2, come to the 2 Charlotte races, come run the Vegas race. Let them put some big bulky diaper or something on there. Like we have a diaper on our Lenko. It can never squirt all out, and I still have to have all that junk. I don't know if they're receptive or not, but I had some conversations with them this weekend, and they at least want to talk about it.
I think that's a very valid point to make, Stevie, because that was one of the things that really had me beating my head against the wall on the heels of that announcement that the Real Pro Mod Association would be going away. NHRA was going to take over the class, and we were hearing things like, hey, no more car quotas, come one, come all. If you want to buy a tech card, you can come run Pro Mod in the NHRA. We're all excited about that, but they bookend that decision with all these new safety devices and all these new safety rules, and I go, man, you just shot, it's over. All those cars, all those guys that were starting to get excited going, you know what? I can't go to them all, but I want to go to a couple when they come close. All those guys say, you know what? Never mind. Right. And I think the belief is that like, oh, what's 15 grand to a guy that's got a $500,000 race operation or whatever? It's not that simple. It's not that simple.
It's not 15, first of all.
I think it's 23,000, I think,
but it's not 23,000. It's the fact that most of these cars that compete in the regional series that you need to attract cannot afford to weigh 15 pounds heavier. All right. All this stuff is heavy. When you make the guy, it's not that they don't want to spend the money.
Great point.
If you're coming and you're a regional competitor and you don't run an HRA a lot, you're probably not going to win if you show up at a race. And you can, it's happened before, but you're probably not going to. These guys are coming to be part of a big show, race on the big stage, have fun, get some experience, get their feet wet and see if they like to do it, see if they want to come back and build a car for it.
Personal opinion, if we could have 16 or 18 Stevies, touring pros, yourself, Jose Gonzalez, the list goes on. If we had 16 touring pros, maybe 14 to 16 touring pros, but could roll into Charlotte and get Jay Cox and get Jason Harris and go up into the New England area and get Freddie Scriba or wherever, get some of these regional guys, this thing would be painfully badass. I mean, it would be a barn burner every time out. You have this group of touring pros that support them all, but every race you're able to pull in 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 regional players. Man, you've got a barn burner of a show on your hands. And I really think that the only thing that's keeping that from happening, obviously the rules a little bit in disarray right now. I do feel like we're making progress, but this 2-race waiver, that could really be a difference maker for the series headed into the end of 2021.
And I pitched when they threw the auto shifter out. I was running down the street screaming naked, hey, let's leave, let auto shifts in with a 25-pound weight penalty. That way, if I can shift my car, I got an advantage. We don't keep anybody that wants to lease a car from coming away. Didn't win that. But if we can get a deal with a 2-race waiver, you know how exciting it would be to have Jay Cox come up and allow me to crush him by a half a second in Charlotte? Or you get somebody that's well-funded.
I got chills.
Like Tommy Franklin. And when Jay comes out and beats me at my game, you know how good that is for the sport? Like, it's really good. And you can even make it simple. Tell them if they got a Turbo 400, if you decide you want to run a Chevrolet Suburban transmission, you got to have something to help you. But don't make them weld stuff to their car, cover it all up. Give them a 2-race waiver. I told NHRA this weekend, I said, type out a waiver that says you're going to die and this is going to kill you and we're not going to even put the fire out and you know you're coming to die. Sign it here. Get your kids away and let them sign it. You'll be off the hook for insurance. Like, say it on there 10 times, you're going to die. Like, you have no chance of life. You understand this last day will be on Earth. You
will not survive.
And don't make it a 1-race, make it a 2-race. If we go to Charlotte and Virginia, you won't be able to come regionally. So I think that would be awesome. And then the other thing you got to do to keep cars coming is you have to cut costs down. Letting the Pro Charger in is great. Almost went to it. It cost everybody $300,000 to $400,000. Overdrive rule, $300,000 to $400,000. New rear gear rule we just got last week. They'll be right back up there. It's going to cost them a couple $100,000. Now we're talking about letting screw blowers in. You're not going to get a car. You're just going to make everybody go spend $300,000 to get a screw blower. You're not going to get a car. We got to, at least before we talk about doing anything crazy, let's keep it simple and try to get some common sense decisions in the technical department to bring some cars.
The screw charger thing really scared me, and I'm not sure how many of our viewers are privy to this conversation that's being had. Stevie, you and I jumped on the phone about this last week. It's like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but history tells us that everywhere screw blowers go, they ruin it. Like, listen, I love those cars and it's awesome. Pro Extreme at its height was fantastic. But they belong on funny cars. By and large, my opinion is they belong on funny cars or outlaw pro mods, right? Where they've been welcomed and integrated into the program for a long time. But I'm with you. I don't see the inclusion of screw blowers putting any more full-time racers into rotation here?
Zero. All you're going to do is make me buy one, make Jose buy one, make Belushi buy one, make Dustin Bond buy one, make everybody buy one. And we'll all have the same thing again. We'll just have spent a bunch of money. They cannot get parity with 4 combinations remotely close. I don't know how we'll add something else. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, or at least it's further down the road. But I'm
hearing people are buying them. Okay, question 3. I'm curious about this. Do you think we've made progress towards parity? I mean, Jose wins, 3rd in the row. Pro Chargers, Justin Bond put on a hell of a show this weekend. Thank God he's okay. Walked away from a scary incident there on the top end at Brainerd International. Do you feel like the recent rule changes from the NHRA have taken us closer to, I think you'll agree, the illusion of parity in NHRA Pro Mod drag racing?
It's closer than what it's been. It's not what I think needs to be done. I don't know. You can never compete with something that makes 55 pounds of boost and is capable of supporting 4,000 horsepower and have it paired up with 2 or 3 other combinations that make 2,800 to 3,000 horsepower and make 40 pounds of boost. What you are doing and what you have done is you're creating the turbo problem paradox all over again. You know how many turbo cars there'd still be if they would have just made everybody put some 67 millimeter or 72 or 76 millimeter turbos on cars 10 years ago? Remember when they had 94 millimeter turbos and no boost controller in quarter mile, and they put a boost controller on the 94s and the whole world ended because they would never be able to compete?
Yes.
It's the same thing. The supercharger that's on the car, the Pro Charger, is the cheapest thing these guys buy. I promise you. If they do not put the right size compressor on it, and I actually had a conversation with some Pro Charger crew chiefs this weekend, and I think they're starting to see that. If they don't put the right size compressor on this thing, by the time they get parity, because they eventually will, if there's anybody left that'll race, it'll be so hard and so complicated to race that you'd never consider wanting to do it. So, yes, we're closer to parity. We made one run in Q1 in Brainerd, and the NHRA officials on the top end are jumping up and down that we got parity.
We did it.
One run. We're within 200 or 300. So we finally got it. And I looked at him. I said, "Are y'all insane? It's going to take you 3 or 4 races to see if we have parity." Now, it's closer than what it's been. I had a car that could win this weekend. We broke a rod running JR. Barely made it back up there for E2. Janice and his whole team and JR had to help us put an engine in. We really struggled with some mechanical stuff. The timing was 4 degrees off and we got crushed. But Jose only went 584 on that run. So, I had a car that was capable of winning. I think Brandon Snyder did too. So it is closer. I definitely don't think they're tapped out or anything. I mean, they got a rule change on Thursday before the race, and they still were able to win. So definitely they're not tapped out. But it's better. It's
why not put a small there's 140s on the Pro Charger, an F1. It's a 140, right?
It's 140.
Why not put a smaller blower on? I mean, what's stopping that? Why can't that conversation be? I was told,
and it is being now more. To start with, they didn't want to change it after they got some information that allowed them to go down a path from some people that weren't being as honest as they should have been and forthcoming, and then they didn't want to change the blower because of the cost of the supercharger, because they're expensive. Those things are expensive. You got to have 2 or 3 of them, right? But if you look at what they've spent versus what they would have spent if they put the right compressor on it, it's very small. The thing needs a 131 on it, needs a 136, something.
To your point, I remember Steve Petty told me this would have been at Gainesville probably 10 years ago. Crew chiefing on the yellow C5 Corvette of Troy Coughlin's. He said to me, Wes, what they need to do is they need to let us take this car to a track the Monday after a national event prep, and I'll bring 40 turbos. I'll bring 67s, 68, whatever, 70, 72, and let's just run it until we find the turbo. Because to your point, Shannon Jenkins said this to me, I think the same weekend. He looked at me in the face and he said, Wes, until all these cars are limited mechanically, the same way our car is limited, a blower car is limited by the size of the pulley on it, right? These nitrous cars are limited by the cubic inches. And until those turbocharged cars are limited mechanically, not by some device that tries to limit them, but are literally mechanically eliminated, we will never be where this thing could be, with everybody having to your point, run the rods out of them.
Right. You got to target a power level. And ours, nitrous car, 2,800, 3,000. Root spoiler, 2,800, 3,000. I think the turbo cars, if you were to, right now is the perfect time to rebuild the turbo because there's no cars coming. You're not going to cost anybody $1 to come. go ahead and take a stab at putting some small turbos on it. Or if you don't want to do that, give them a couple pounds of boost because they probably need it. If everybody didn't have their can in a cookie jar, they probably would have been okay at the boost level. And then you got to put something on the Pro Charger card that doesn't make 4,000 because when it makes 4,000 or 3,500, it's really hard quarter-mile to reel it in. And I'm preaching to the choir, but we they got to do something. At the heart of car count is parity. People want to win, and if you do not have a chance to show up and win, it's going to hurt car count. I am optimistic. We're going to have a full field in Indy. I expect 20 to 24 cars in Charlotte. Charlotte will be back good. We got a lot of guys coming to Indy that did not come out west. Ricky's coming. Jeffrey's coming to run the nitrous car. We've got Jim's going to come. And then I know I think Lyle's coming, maybe a Jason Scruggs, a Mike Castellano. We've got some talent coming to run Indy. And then Charlotte, we've also got the Jones cars, the three of those coming back.
Jones Racing. I think Eric Latino's talking about coming back for Charlotte.
So I'm expecting.
That's a who's who. That's a hell of a race right there with just the guys you mentioned. So
I don't think you can ever. I think if you make emotional decisions off of one or two races, it's just like them making an emotional safety decision off of one transmission failure. I don't think you can look at two races that are never going to have. I mean, Vegas. I hate to say this, but you're going to have 5 or 6 cars in Vegas too. It's far to drive. There's not as many touring full-time teams, and it's expensive. I think you can look at the brunt of the season as we get back in the East Coast.
I think we saw it in Vegas last year.
7 cars, right?
Right. I mean, you knew.
It's going to be more exciting to get back East Coast racing. I don't want to jump up and down and say that the world is ending until we go to a couple more races.
I feel you, man, and I appreciate that positive outlook. We love to deliver that here via Drag Illustrated and the Wes Buck Show. We would be criminals, Stevie, if we didn't touch this. I've gotten a notification from Sarah Slaughter, the PR director over there at John Force Racing, that John's running a little bit behind. So we got a few minutes here. I would love. You got to fill us in on this whole no prep situation, man. I've got a bunch of questions about it. You've been very busy making videos yourself the last couple of weeks. I'm sure you've got a lot to say, but I think what I want to ask is, does that style of racing interest you at all? Does it pique your curiosity whatsoever?
No, the money does. What they're paying does, and the passion from the fans does. Competing in that sort of arena does not. And I've had conversations with some of the powers that be on the TV show, and being famous or being on a television show, being successful, zero interest. I want that $40,000 a race that they're paying. So that piques my interest. Getting into a passionate group of fans, you think Pro Mod fans are passionate? You should see my email inbox the last week. No prep is a whole different level. And I like that. I think that's good. I think that anything that brings attention to our sport is good. I think that those guys have brought a demographic of fan to our sport that relates to dollars and cents for even me. It gives us a footprint that allows me to go into a boardroom and show them that footprint. If you don't think I don't use some of the demographics from some of those events that they have in some of my presentations when I'm just throwing a broad dart in a sponsorship proposal, I absolutely do. I support anything that brings fans to the class. The issue that I have, and let me tell you what piques my interest, is when we have the illusion that it's not a TV show. Okay? As long as everybody knows it's a TV show and it's not a how good you are, you get to win race, and it's we pick you because we like you or because you've done this, then that is one thing. But when you start saying that no matter how good you are, your merit, your credentials, or how competitive you have shown to be for the last 25 years, we won't let you race over here, but we're still going to talk shit about you. That's a problem for me. It's like this. They still, for 10 days, because they pissed me off last week. So I started making some calls. I was like, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to build a car. It feels like you're crazy. They're never going to let you race over there. So I started poking around. I said, I want to know how I can come enter. I have asked this question on every forum, every media site, and every contact, and every email inbox I can find. I don't want special treatment. I don't want you to let me in. I want to know, how do I do it? I just want a structure. If I got to run it for 3 years and go win 75 races, that's fine. But there's no path to do it. So for me to go spend $250,000 to go crush those guys, it doesn't make good financial sense. I like football. You like sports?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanksgiving, I'll give you an example of what this is like. Thanksgiving, we have a family football game in the front yard. We had it since I was 5 years old. It's called a Turkey Bowl in Augusta, Georgia. You like Fletcher Cox?
Big fan.
Big fan. One of my buddies. I tuned his car a long time ago. I used to drive it. Huge respect for Fletcher. Now, if I called up Fletcher on Thanksgiving and I said, the Philadelphia Eagles suck and you suck, we're here in Augusta, Georgia at the Turkey Bowl in my front yard in Evans, Georgia, and we will destroy you. You can never compete over here. If you brought them Philadelphia Eagles over here, we would beat you into oblivion. Is Fletcher supposed to get all them guys on a plane and come here? What would happen if he did? And then I said, Fletcher, I'm just talking shit. We won't let you come play because we're better than you. How's that silly? Fletcher, fill the Turkey Bowl. Fletcher, do not come hit me at the Turkey Bowl because that joker, he'll show up on Thanksgiving and play.
Oh, he's a big, scary dude. He's a big, scary man. And he makes me feel like a child when I'm around him. But you know what? To be honest, I think that's a really freaking fair analogy. I mean, I think that's a really, really fair analogy. But to their defense, I've said this about pro wrestling. I don't know if you're a pro wrestling fan. I'm a big pro wrestling guy. You know, if the WWE rolls into Fort Worth, Texas next weekend, they're not going to bring all their biggest stars, John Cena and Roman Reigns and all these guys out to the ring and then send a call out to the crowd. Anybody want to come in here and try somebody on? Because I guarantee you there's somebody wearing a cowboy hat, overalls, and boots that would come in there and tromp a mud hole in John Cena's ass. Right. And then their big star, holy cow, is now laid out in the squared circle. What do we do now? So I understand Discovery Channel and I understand the Street Outlaws perspective because they got to protect their stars. They got to protect their shows. But to your point, you can't argue that you're the baddest in the world and come one, come all, we'll crush everybody if you're not prepared to have Fletcher Cox show up at Turkey Bowl.
At Turkey Bowl and just like DDT me into a coma. And I mean, no, I got so much hate mail thinking that last week I'm hating on grassroots motorsports enthusiasts or people that are coming up and trying to do it. And if you think that about me, you haven't been a motorsports fan very long. I have probably less than anybody out here that does what I do. I come from nothing. I have raced in junk on nothing. And I am for anything that brings fans and brings folks into motorsports. Seeing those fans get so passionate about their favorite racer over there, man, that gets my heart pumping. I like that. And I want those guys to have a good show, and I want them to do that. If the No Prep people will issue a press release saying that we are sorry, we don't want you to come over here, we didn't mean it, I'll go away quietly into the night. But if y'all keep paying a bunch of money and telling me I can't do it, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. I will find the guy who's got the biggest piece of junk, non-competitive car that can't drive, and I will take that car and defeat you with it if you continue to talk trash about me. I've done it before. And we'll just see where it goes. I think whether it happens or not, it's good for the sport.
It is, man.
Controversy is good for the sport. This is not a kumbaya sport. This is not a participation trophy sport. So all the love that I got last week and all the hate, that's good. Show up and come watch me win or lose. Pick a side and ride with it. And we may never get to even field a car over there. But I promise you, if I decide I'm coming over there and if I decide to come and I build a car to come over there, I'm going to win.
Stevie, thank you so much, man. What an ambassador for the sport of drag racing. Love your passion, love the enthusiasm, and I can't wait to see what happens next, man. This kind of reminds me of like Michael Jordan. Who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? We're never going to get to see those guys play each other. We're never going to get to actually see that happen. But man, is it fun to debate. It's fantastic for sports, and this whole situation with you and the Street Outlaws has been fantastic for the sport of drag racing. So thanks for playing along, man. I think you guys need to hear that. There are those of us in this sport that we appreciate you guys that are willing to play the part, because I know you have to put that on. You have to go, okay, I got to do it.
I had sponsors call and yell at me so much last week, and I told all of them, I said, you know who you're sponsoring, and I can't always wear a white hat. Sometimes you got to be the bad guy, and I'm okay. If motorsports needs a bad guy, I'll be the bad guy. I've been a bad guy before, so that's no problem. I'm excited to see where that whole thing goes. It could end up being something fun and huge. It could be nothing. But if motorsports wins, then I win, and I'm excited about it.
From your mouth to God's ears, Stevie. Thank you so much for being here, brother. We appreciate you a ton.
One more thing. All right, my hero, the man himself.
He's right here.
Coming on, make sure he knows that if something happens, you don't feel good one day. You got an extra car laying around. You just need somebody to blaze her down through her on Monday morning. Call me. I'm ready. I got a helmet, fire suit. Look, I'm all ready. I get all excited and stuff. I'm just watching.
Oh, John, do you need a test pilot? Thank you, Stevie.
You can if you got something dumb you want to try, you know it's going to blow the body off and tear everything up, put me in it.
Thank you so much, Stevie. I appreciate it, man. Honestly, I think this is a first for us. Maybe the first time we've ever been joined by the best in the business, the greatest of all time. And I don't know that I could be any more excited than I am today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. 16-time champion himself, John Force. Welcome to the show, brother. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Wes, first of all, I thought I was doing an automotive race car show, and then there's Stevie, and this is WWF or something. I'm all screwed up. I told Sarah, I think I'm on the wrong show here. But, man, that kid's got fire. He's got energy. And get used to getting beat up on for your whole life, because I'm going through it, been through it, and we'll go through it again. But love your energy, kid.
Hey, we do too, and we love your energy and the energy that you still have all these years, and honestly, that's what we're here to do, John. That's what we try to do something different. You can log onto the internet, jump on YouTube, and see all sorts of crash videos and all sorts of slow-mo replays of Tire Shake, but there's really nowhere else that you can go have a really unfiltered, candid conversation with some of the biggest stars the sport of drag racing has to offer outside of what we're doing right here on Drag Illustrated with the Wes Buck Show. I got to ask, John, for someone who's done it all, been around this sport forever, what was it like to enjoy yet another first ever a couple of weeks ago when you and Brittany Force, your daughter, shared the winner's circle, the first ever pro father-daughter, father-child victory? What was that moment like? Did you think that you had any more first evers really left in you?
Well, first, let me jump back a little bit.
Yeah, you're good.
I got excited with watching this Stevie show here with you, Buck. But first, I got to get the Austin Proc kid back in my Montana brand top fueler. Got to get all that put back together. And if I do, and I get some more money, another car, I may be calling old Stevie up. He's got a lot of fire in his belly, and he knows how to take the heat. So God bless.
You heard it here, man. We need, and being able to be that character and put on that hat and play the part and be a star, because that's something that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit later. But I believe you will attest that's a job in and of itself. The same way you've got to be ready to go get in the car and do your job there, you've got to be ready to put your character, personality, superstar. You have fans. You've got to be willing to put that hat on and go be that larger than life personality if we want to see this sport go to the next level.
You got to take care of the sponsors like Auto Club and Peak and Chevrolet and Cornwell Tools, Monster, Flavor Pack, the list goes on and on. Then you got to take care of the fans. But let me tell you, I tell my daughter Brittany, the fans will take care of you. When you lose, a lot of times they don't even realize it. You go out there and they're just so into you, and they'll bring you back to life after a bad first round like I had at Brainerd. But let me tell you something. To win the week before at Topeka with Brittany, her and the Monster Energy Top Fuel, me and Peak Blue Def, it was a moment for a father to be very proud. I won a lot of races, and I even promised Baldwin Fillers, we're coming to do a show on Monday. We'll try to bring a win with us. I figured out of two of us, one would get it, but I never thought both of us. With Courtney and with Ashley, I always raced them in funny cars, so I never got that opportunity. So to win with Brittany, she said it filled her bucket list. It filled mine. It was pretty exciting, but mainly to watch her and that team with Grubnick tuning that car and Savage. It made an old man's day. It made me young again.
It was fantastic to see, man. And it was, as a father myself, I've got a 7-year-old little girl, Sophia. She's at school this week, her first week of first grade. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to experience that, John? To be honest, I can only hope that someday I get close to something like that, to compete at that level and to have the kind of success that you've had, but to have that moment together, I think it was special. And it was, people hear me on this show every week rant and rave about how I want to see controversy and I want to see people up in arms. I want to see people fired up and climbing out of the car heated. There's another side to that I want to see people. I want to see those moments. I want to see teary eyes. I want to see hugs. I want to see loving embraces. I want to see high fives. I want to be able to watch the show and feel how much this means to you. And I felt like watching the broadcast from Topeka, John, I could tell that was a special moment. You were down there yelling. They didn't even have you mic'd up. We're double dipping. And it was just I could sense your excitement, and thank God for that. Thank you for bringing that kind of energy to our sport week in and week out. I'm curious, kind of switching gears here, but sticking along the lines of first evers. The entire world is enduring something of a first ever. We're suffering through a global pandemic, COVID-19. No one alive has experienced something like this before. You endured a first ever last year when you chose to keep John Force Racing on the sidelines. You took the season off. We pride ourselves in kind of having candid, unfiltered conversations here on this show, talking about things way beyond who won last weekend. I'm curious, was there ever a moment, John, that you weren't sure that you were going to be able to return to action? Was there ever a moment that you thought maybe this is it? Maybe this taking the season off is the end of the road?
Well, let me back up again. Wes, when I go back the first time you called me about doing your magazine, I thought, well, God bless him. Somebody's going to try to do it again. But that's a tough road to go down. And yet you put the heart into it. You put your passion into the interview and the story, and you survived. And now doing these shows here, you're a survivor. So I've always been a survivor. A kid growing up, I had polio as a young boy with my right leg. That's why from football, I lost every game in my high school, 3 years of being a quarterback at Bell Gardens High. I still have that record, lost every game. But when I got into college, it wasn't going to work. I couldn't run. So I let a race car do the running for me, put on a helmet, camaraderie of the team, the cheer of the crowd. I was right back where I belonged. So along that road, I've been to Crossroads in my book, and they've already written the movie script if I ever bring this life career of mine to an end. But when I looked at Crossroads in my life, where I was out of gas, I was out of money, tuners ran off, everything that could go wrong, getting hurt, crashes, upside down. I've spent more time 1 year in a helicopter than I did on the racetrack, going to the hospital. So in the middle of it, I never gave up. And then, boy, this pandemic hit. You know what I mean? And the whole world changed the way people think, the way sponsors think. But we got to get back. America's got to get back. The world's got to get back. And, I always tell people, I don't care how old you are, get off that couch, get up, go to work, get some exercise, be alive, enjoy life. And trust me, I have struggles too. A lot of people would say, that's hearing you talk, how you talk about how get out and do it all, and yet you have so many downer days. I do. I get on a treadmill. I run to get out of the things that upset me. You know what I mean? I drink a lot of coffee, a lot of Monster Energy. I keep fighting the fight. And when that pandemic hit, I thought, man, but I looked at it, and Robert Height, my driver of the Auto Club Chevy, president of John Force Racing, he did the numbers. He got with Johnny Lou, my accountant, and they figured out how we could survive. And we had to park it. And that made me ill, because now what I lived for, what made me tick, I couldn't do. And all of a sudden, it's like you're going to work every day. And after 4 months, there's nothing to do but to get a game plan where to go. We got a game plan. And a lot of people said, you'll never come back. I was able to keep, most of my people, half of them maybe. I had to do so many things to cut hours where they just worked part-time, but we bounced back and we came back and we won, and we're in the hunt. And that's what's really exciting to me. A lot of people say, hey, you had the points lead last week. Yeah, for about a day, and then I lost it. But that's not what makes me tick. What it's all about is the fight, to get into it, to try to win. And look right now, I'm 19 points. That's less than a round out of the lead, right? But there's 5 other guys right in there. Hagen's taking the lead. Ron Capps, J.R. Todd, Robert Height, we're all in it, okay? Tasca. So in the middle of it, this is the kind of fight I like. It's what makes it exciting. The pandemic almost took me out mentally. I fought. I got through it. My family stayed by me. You know, my team stayed by me. Sponsors stayed by me. We're back, and we're winning. And every week, let's see where it goes. But I love the competition, and I love the fire.
That's exactly right. And it's crazy
because
you
got so wound up. You're talking about
you get wound up. That's what we're here to do, buddy. I mean, and you're exactly right, John. You're back, and thank God for that. But not only are you back, to your point, you're back winning in championship contention. Let me tell you, John, your presence makes a difference in this sport at the events, on the television broadcast, across the board. I hope you know how much of a difference maker you are for the sport of drag racing. Your presence is felt. There's an energy, whether it's on the broadcast from afar, whether you're there on the grounds, we feel your presence. It's like a religious experience. And I do hope you know how much we appreciate that. And I hope that you're able to walk around with your chest stuck out, because you are the ultimate needle mover for the sport of drag racing. But I'm curious, do you feel pressure to be the guy for the sport of drag racing or for the NHRA? I mean, is it an obligation that you feel, or a responsibility that you feel you have? Because let's be honest, you've been doing this for a long time. The conversation is ongoing at all times. When's John going to hang it up? I'm curious, is this late career run? Is this what you're doing out here before our eyes, John? Is this because you feel you have to do it? Because I've referred to you before as an oak. I believe that you're the oak in the center of the circus tent, right? You're the pole that's holding this thing up. You're a grandpa now. You've been doing this. Like you said, you spent entire seasons inside life flight helicopters. I'm curious, does that pressure start to weigh on you at some point? How long do you feel yourself being the center of attention for the sport of drag racing?
First of all, if I reach a point where I get out of the seat, it's because I'll make the call. I always joke, it's not over till I say it's over. But I love driving a fuel funny car. I've never driven a top fueler. I've driven a few fuel Allards in my early days and street cars. You know what I mean? But I do it because I like being there. I like being with the team. I like winning. If I lose, that's part of the game. Come back and test the next day. That's what you do. That's what it's all about. But I'm a real lucky man, and I do feel that I owe the sport of NHRA drag racing. They gave me this life. My grandchildren, Autumn is racing. Jacob and Noah are racing, in the juniors. And what I'm saying is I was given an opportunity, and I can't just walk away like I've got enough money to retire. I can stop. I've got other businesses. I've got 5 or 6 corporations. Hell, I don't even know what they do. Drag race is what I do. I love getting up in the morning. I have good days. I have bad days, but I get the fire in my belly and I go after it. So the racing keeps me alive. It makes me young. When I get in that car, that's why I call out, get off the couch. Don't let the old man in. I always said, Austin Coyle said it. A guy brought me a t-shirt. Clint Eastwood said it. Okay. But because I didn't say it, I just repeated it. But in the middle of it, I'm very fortunate that I'm in this game, that I get to do it. I get to do it with the young kids. So I'm not going to walk away. Camping World came in by just, whatever reason. Good Lord.
I think that's the grace of God. I honestly have labored over that. And I thought to myself, this is a miracle. This is an absolute miracle that a sponsor like Camping World would come in on the heels of everything that was going on last year, the situation with Coca-Cola, and for Camping World to come in and do what they do, I felt it was a miracle.
And Robert and we just signed Jayco trailers that sells through Camping World.
Really?
Like pandemic, and we couldn't even do anything because we weren't racing. So a lot of things, crossroads, one door closes, another one opens. But I call out to the fans at Topeka, what we want to do is look out of our cars, and we want to see your faces. We want to see the crowds in the stands. Come to Brainerd, come to Indy. That's where I want to be. And I want to see them. But it isn't just John Forrest. It's the men and women of drag racing. the employees that work on the cars, the ones that run the hospitalities, the machine shops, the chassis shops, the drivers, the crews, they all want to look out the window of that car and they want to see the stands packed at Indy. And the fans, you do it. You bring us alive. And I've called them out a number of times because, and it isn't for me, all of the drivers want it. They want it in NASCAR. They want it in IndyCar. That's what makes us tick. That gives us fire in our belly to win a race, to entertain you and put on a great show. And NHRA Drag Racing, I believe, is the greatest show on earth.
100%. I literally wrote these words last night in an email to one of our subscribers of the magazine. I said, drag racing is the great American motorsport. You can't tell me otherwise. This is the great American motorsport. From your mouth to God's ears. John, I'm curious, kind of as we move forward here, and I hope we're not going to keep you too long. I appreciate you again taking the time to join us here on the show today. It's a big moment for all of us to have yourself on the show. One of the things that we try to do here on the show is spin a little bit of racer self-help. We have a lot of racers. We're proud to have a huge fan following, but we also have a lot of hardcore racers that watch this show every Wednesday that race themselves, some at pro level, some sportsmen and amateur racers. Can you take us through, was there ever a moment for you that you decided you have to become the John Force that we know today? I challenge racers all the time, like, wear your heart on your shirt sleeve. Say what you think. Let us know how you feel. You don't got to just stand there in front of the mic and say hi to mom and dad and thank your Lord and Savior and shout out a couple sponsors. Tell us how you feel. Let us know who you are. Was there a moment, because I believe I've spent time around you. I've been around you away from the racetrack, and you can be a pretty subdued guy, John. You can be quiet. You've told me stories about going to the movie theater by yourself and watching a movie alone. I think the general consent, the masses can't believe that you would go spend a couple hours alone in silence. But what that tells me is that you know consciously that you have to turn on John Force, the John Force we know and love. I'm curious, at what point in your career did you understand that, hey, I've got to put on a show myself? I've got to be this larger than life character. Did someone get in your ear? Did someone tell you to turn on that kind of part of your personality?
When I was a kid, I never was a great athlete. I was always a big old storyteller like my mama. They claim my grandpa was hung in Oklahoma on the famous hanging tree there for lying. I always said stealing horses. No, for lying. But I never lie. I embellish the heck out of a story, but I do it to entertain people. I never do it to make somebody look bad or do something. No, I do it for entertainment. And sometimes I go over the line. I'm not perfect. But what I'm saying is I was telling stories. When I got in high school, I was telling stories. In the football huddle is why the coach brought me up from the B team, because I punched the other quarterback. I said, enough of this guy's bull stuff. Let's play the game. And I went on down that road. I was driving a truck. I was in a Denny's restaurant getting a free cup of coffee and an egg, a boiled egg, because I could tell stories to the other truckers. So when I went racing in Australia in 74, 75, it just was a way to tell stories. And this guy goes, you're hopeless, but your car won't even run. But man, when you get that media, they write all about you the next day and you didn't do anything. And years later, I got a call from Vinnie Knapp in Englishtown. He said, I need you to come. Jungle Jim passed, and I need you to come here and run for me. And I said, well, I just got my license, and I'm not really that good. I was trying to tell the guy. And he said, no, but you're a storyteller and you'll do long burnouts. And I said, I never even been past Arizona. That's how I started my career. That's how it just kind of evolved. So telling stories, being who I am. Yeah, I do go to the movies. I bury myself. I take my grandkids sometimes. I go watch just so I can unwind, because sooner or later, you keep going down this road, like my doc says, you won't ever just fall over dead in a rocket chair. You'll have a massive heart attack running down a return road. I mean, there I was. My daughter, Brittany, won the championship. I'm standing there on the starting line. I fell to my knees. I'm crying. My wife goes, you're embarrassing. You need to get up. But it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Come back the next year, opening race at Pomona. She rolls that dragster end over end. And I'm trying to run to her trying to get on my motorcycle because I thought, oh my God, she just won the championship. And now we might have killed her here. And I'm running down there, and all of this emotion is what keeps you alive. And that's why to have her double up with me, to come back fighting. And I thought maybe when she crashed, they took her out in the ambulance, it was done. But boy, I got to give it to the women out there. They fight their way back, win or lose, crash. You know, they do it because they love it. And the women are really helping grow our sport. There's so many out there. Shirley Muldowney in the beginning, you know what I mean? DeJoria, Pritchett,
Erica Enders, the list go. I mean, there's all the Myers girls. It's incredible.
I'll shut up here. Okay.
No, they're great. I'm curious, and this is a great segue, John. You've been on the next generation kick for as long as I've known you. That you've always been trying to bring up this next generation of racers. I'm curious, when you look at the sport right now, and I think we should start a drinking game for how many times I'm going to say curious today, because I think that's about 75. Apologies out there. But what happened when you look around the sport right now, John? Who are you especially proud of when it comes to showmanship? I mean, because I think obviously the performance is obvious, right? We've got Steve Torrance dominating, you got Matt Hagan running really good. There's a lot of really good cars. But when you look around the sport and you think about what we just talked about, being a character, being a storyteller, being a personality, who are the people that you are cheering on? Who are you a fan of in pro level drag racing right now?
Yeah, but they weren't all big mouths like me. I'm a big mouth, okay? The Don Perdomes never said anything. He was my hero. I'm still chasing him. I'm still chasing Connie Coletta. I don't even race him. And Mongoose, Raymond Beadle, Jungle Jim, Kenny Bernstein. He was the guy that brought corporate America here. That's what I do. So when you look out at the new kids, I say to the kids coming up, don't do this because you want to be famous. Don't do it because you want to win. That's all part of it, because it takes years to learn how to win. Do it because you love it and you love the fans. Don't do it because you think you're going to be a champion, because there's guys out there right now, if they had the money, would already be world champions. But when you look at the group coming up, there's so many of them. Robert Height, has won 3 championships. He's a complete different animal than me. He's a man of few words, but he gets the job done. But they love his interview because he talks about what went on in the race car, what it was like. And I'm out there talking about some dream that's coming 2 weeks down the road. Everybody's different. Bobby Tasca has a fire in his belly. I see it. Hagan got mad at me at the races, and I saw him all wound up. But even though I think he's crazy, but that's only my opinion. But in looking at him, I said, man, I like the fire in this guy's belly. He looks like he wants to fight. I call him Teddy Bear because he's just a big kid. He looks like the Hulk. He's all muscle.
I've been calling him Hulk Hagan. I've been calling him Hulk Hagan a lot. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I was proud of him. Do you think we saw a little bit of a star turn in that moment between yourself and Matt Hagan? Because I do. I think him getting revved up like that, I'm sure you didn't like it in the moment, but that, to me, I go, okay, I think Matt Hagan is becoming a star right now.
Well, he's already been a star. He's won championships. He does his job. He's a great driver, but there's so many. Ron Capps. I don't go by how many championships a person wins. I go by how they treat their fans, how they take care of the sponsors, doing shows. Ron Capps, to me, is Brad Pitt. He's a young kid, and he's just the Petragon. Tony Petragon's in the booth, but there was a kid that could have went anywhere he wanted in racing, and he chose another direction. His brother Cruz, who's flying right now, come out of nowhere. Wilkerson, that's flying. They're all different animals. They're all different, and it's when you go out there and you look at these kids. J.R. Todd, I just love this kid. If he was mad at you, you'd never know it. He never gets mad, never loses his temper. If he thinks you did something wrong on the start line, he'll just say, good luck next week. It's just the different animals that we deal with, but they're all good people. And they're the only friends I got. You understand? The lady down at the laundromat and the guy at the donut shop. These are the only people I know except my family. So they're building their future. We got to get through this pandemic. NHRA's got to get the sport back. Thank you, Camping World. And I want to say that we'll build new stars. And in time, when I fade out, I've always joked, I ain't going to go on a rocking chair on my front porch, but I've always joked when I disappear, I went out the gate on my little motorcycle. You know what I'm saying? But in the real world, when I do get out of the car because I can't cut it, okay, then I'm going to, because age is not the call out here, and I'm struggling with that Christmas tree. I am really struggling. I tried some stuff last week. We came back on Monday testing this week after Brainerd. I ran 87, 86, 86. Like, where'd that go on race day? Wasn't my crew chief's fault. Wasn't the team's fault. It was all my fault. We ran 96, and then I said, I'm going to change the cockpit to make my lights better, and I changed everything and made it where I couldn't drive the car. I was hitting the steering wheel with my knee. I was hitting the roll cage. I couldn't see. I screwed up Brainerd, knocked myself out of the points. We came back Monday, put it all back, and we flew. So maybe we'll be back in the game in Indy. Maybe we won't. But we're going there to try, because my people are the best, and all the teams, they're all great. Some are better, some have better days, some have better years, but in the end, love what we do, and we're really lucky people. You look what's going on in Afghanistan, it makes me sick. I worry about people that I don't even know. So to all the military and the first responders and firemen and policemen, God bless you. Take the time in the airports to shake their hand, because they're the real heroes. And all this here is just another good storyteller.
In that you are. And yes, sir. God bless all those men and women that keep us safe here in the good old US of A. John, thank you so much for being here. I want to tell you that you said something momentarily or a few minutes ago, and I've still got chills. I've had goosebumps since you said it. And I hope you know how much what you've done inspires people such as myself, my entire team here at Drag Illustrated. I remember telling you one time you were giving me the grand tour of the Brownsburg facility, this monstrous shop, and everything is perfect. The floor is perfect. All the cars are set up perfect. I was just so overwhelmed by it. And I told you that day, John, thank you, because this is inspiring. Because for someone who eats, sleeps, breathes drag racing, earns his living in the sport of drag racing, it's so inspiring to see what drag racing did for you, the kind of life you were able to build for your family, the business that you were able to create for all your people. That was provided by drag racing. And it's inspiring. We appreciate you. We're going to cheer you on. I hope you never hang them up. Thank you so much for being on here today. Ladies and gentlemen, John Force. Thank you, sir.
And remember one thing, the new stars are coming. Steve Torrance, you know what I'm saying? Antron, that list, it just goes on and on. These kids that love it, and there's been ones that have given their lives over the years, you know, and God bless them to make our sport, you know, to keep on moving ahead, and we move ahead for the ones we lost. So we love you. Thanks. I know I never answered nothing, but
no, you did. You're the best interview alive. Thank God for John Force. We appreciate you, brother. Stay out of trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you. Holy cow, guys. I don't even hardly know what to say after that. First, before we dive into kind of the final stretch here, we're headed towards the finish line for this episode of The Wes Buck Show right here on Drag Illustrated's YouTube channel and Facebook page. I want to tell you guys all, thank you so much for being a part of this. We're seeing numbers here today on the show that we haven't seen in a long time. It's inspiring. It's heartwarming. It feels good. It's validating. I think every one of our team members that are here right now, Murder Tundra, who's been on the ones and twos with me since the very first Wednesday, Dion Walrath, my new co-host, Mike Carpenter, you guys being here, being a part of this. I feel we're doing something special here. Drag racing needs unfiltered conversation like this. We got the show of shows, and I just want to thank everybody, because we don't have anything without all of you watching, without you clicking like, without you subscribing to the channel, without you sharing this and engaging us, because that engagement that we get in the comments, it's unbelievable. Hearing all these incredible perspectives, people from all different walks of the racing life, fans, crew members, racers, pros, sportsmen, and everything in between, seeing what you have to say about these topics and communicating with us. For me, I think I can speak for everybody, but it's like oxygen. Mike called me last night and he was scrolling through. This is late at night, and he's scrolling through the comments on YouTube, wanting to see what people were saying so we can see if we're on the right track or if people agree with us or disagree. So thank you all, wherever you're watching, wherever you're joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for guest number 3 here today on this glorious Wednesday, I mean, you guys want to talk about a really good dude. a real deal racer who's won maybe more than John Force. He may be the only guy that's got more titles to his credit than John Force in pro level drag racing. Someone who saw an opportunity to get in on the ground floor of no prep racing, dove in, and is now becoming a household name in the sport of drag racing. That's right, folks. Let's welcome one of Street Outlaw No Prep King's biggest stars, our buddy, longtime friend of Drag Illustrated, Mike Murillo. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Wes? How are you?
Man, swinging and ducking, buddy. I tell you what, thank you so much for being on here. You've been in the green room for the last couple of hours, almost hour and a half. I know you're testing today, getting ready for the fast approaching No Prep Kings event this weekend at Virginia Motorsports Park. Shout out to Judy and Tommy Franklin and our friends, Tyler Crossnow and everybody out there on the East Coast. Man, Mike, thanks for being here. You've been kind of thrown into the mix with all this controversy between professional drag racers, let's call it like it is, pro-level drag racers, and the stars, the cast, if you will, of Street Outlaws No Prep Kings. When we had a meeting about who could really talk about this with the most authority, your name was the first one that came up, Mike. As I said in the introduction, you've won all there is to win in small tire drag racing. You've won multiple championships several year after year after year. I don't know that there's anybody that would be better served to talk about the differences between these two walks of the racing life, if you will, and the comparisons. First and foremost, I guess let's just dive into that. What do you make of it? I saw you watching when Stevie was making the comparison of No Prep Kings racing to the Turkey Bowl in his front yard on Thanksgiving. I mean, what do you make of that comparison, being that you have raced at a pro level and had success, and here you are in No Prep Kings? Is that something that, I mean, does it hurt your feelings? Does that insult you, or how do you take that?
Are we live right now?
We are 100% live on the World Wide Web.
Okay, sorry, I'm just used to being on TV. I normally don't do the live stuff on the internet.
Yes, we are 100% live, big dog. Say what you think.
Hey, I get it from both sides. You know what I mean? I mean, you said pretty much what you said about what we've done in our history and our career. I've had, Donald Long called me an amateur, and so be it. Honestly, Wes, and I can only speak for myself, but at the same time, I know I speak for a lot of the racers that I race with, a lot of the fans that we have, the No Prep Racing fans are out there. Is that, I mean, I really don't give two shits what he thinks. I don't care what Stevie thinks. This sport needs something. It needs a spark, and it got a spark. It got a spark with Street Outlaws back in 2013. So you can say what you want about No Prep, about Street Outlaws, but it really gave a boost to the motorsport. People and the sport itself, racing, drag racing, that's needed for years. And so I don't apologize for it. My biggest thing, one of the things I say all the time, is you get in where you fit in. And, this is where we fit in. We've done a bunch of racing. We've been successful at everything that we do besides Pro Mod. And Pro Mod is my favorite class, believe it or not. It truly is. I took a stab at it back in 2013, racing with Todd Moyer, driving one of his cars. And, it only lasted a year because at that time XDRL went out. I believe it only lasted a year. Actually, we didn't even last a full year. But
yeah, bottom
line, I've never tried drag radio. I don't care about drag radio. I mean, you can go back and look and see if I've entered into one of Donald's drag racing shows. I never have. I'm just not interested in it. I feel like my son's junior could probably run a high 390. With the way those tracks are prepped. So, bottom line, I changed and I decided to do something different back in 2013, 2014, and I had the opportunity. And I was an outcast at first when I first got involved. It is true. They're not going to just let anybody in. There's a brand that Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings, has to keep. They have to keep the brand name up, and but at the same time, people that do the work, they get their way in. So I feel like I did my work. You know what I mean? I raced several No Prep races. I was involved with the cast, and for quite a few years, I was involved in it before I actually had the opportunity. So bottom line, I love what I do. I got my vacation shirt on. I'm on vacation because I'm on vacation all year long. Man, we're traveling the country. We just had to drop our 11-year-old boy William, who's well known. We had to drop him off so he could start middle school. But man, my wife and I, our hearts are hurting, man. We want to, we want them to come back. We want to do maybe possibly home with them, but we're right now, we're right in the middle of, loading everything up, getting ready to head to Virginia. So, we just got back in last night, so we're doing what we love. Bottom line.
Man, we are enjoying watching you guys do what you love. And to your point, Mike, and we may have to let you go and try to bring you back on. We got a really odd connection. I don't know if it's on our end or yours. We may have to try this again whenever we get you in a out away from a test session. I apologize. I know that you guys are trying to test this weekend or test today and get ready for the weekend. I do want to say that you make, I think, kind of the ultimate point, and it's I hate to have had you here this long and not be able to get this this audio tuned up, guys. Mike, we may have to bring you back. Let's Mike, we're going to try to bring you back here in just a minute, all right? We're going to remove you from the feed. I'm going to shoot you a link, okay? Okay, 1 second here. We'll see if we can get Mike added back. I will say, Mike and Nate, Mike and JT, this is probably a great time for you guys to join the party here. I do think, and to his point, the coolest thing, and this is what Stevie Jackson was saying earlier, Mike, and I think both of you guys can riff on this with a little bit with me. It's undeniable what Street Outlaws has done for the sport of drag racing. I mean, can we all agree with that? Like, I think anybody that, I don't care where you stand on illegal street racing. I don't care what type of racing you want to do. I don't care. You cannot deny that Street Outlaws and following that No Prep Kings massively changed the game for all of motorsports. I mean, for me personally,
sure.
Like, this is the first time that I've had people that I meet in the street or whatever. They know what I'm talking about. They know what this is. They know what drag racing is.
You see the shirts everywhere. Like, you go to the grocery store, you see the shirts. I mean, people are into it. I get asked more about Street Outlaws cast than anything. When you're just meeting, when you tell somebody what you do for a living, hey, do you know those Street Outlaw guys? Yeah, I mean, really,
it's the fact, man.
It gets asked all the time.
I think it's incredible what they're doing for the sport of drag racing, and I think it's cool. Let's try Mike again here real quick, and we'll give it a few minutes. If we can't get him, we maybe try next week. It looks better, Mike. Can you hear us okay, brother? Oh, it's still pretty bad, JT. We're going to have to try again. Can
you hear me?
Barely, are you stepping outside of the trailer? Maybe that's the ticket. Let's see what happens here. We'll give it a few more seconds, and we'll...
Yeah, sorry. Got a bunch of static.
Let's see what happens.
I end over here too.
You're good, big dog. Let's see if it picks up. Such as doing a live show. We're gonna watch Mike climb in his truck. Looks like a late model Ford, maybe.
Ford.
Let's see here. I think we're gonna have to bounce. I think we're gonna have to bail. Shoots out, guys. We're going to have to bail. Mike, apologies. Let's try this again later, my friend. I'm dying to hear what you have to say about Stevie, but we can hardly hear just about every other word, my friend. JT, bring yourself and Mike back up, because I want to touch on that. Do you guys agree with me that anybody that hates, any hardcore NHRA drag racing fan, or anybody that dives into the comments and says how much they hate this stuff, or that it's fake, or that it's Sesame Street Outlaws or whatever, do you agree they're just jealous?
I do, yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah, that's one
reason that I can think of.
Well, like John Force said, there are new stars coming. We will make new stars. And John obviously is talking about NHRA, but drag racing as a whole, I think that's what he means. I think that is what we're seeing, is that show making new stars, whether it comes from that arena or the pro arena. Making new stars is what it's all about. And just let's recap. JT, Dion, and myself, we've been sitting here kind of watching you do your thing with Stevie and John Force, and two incredible interviews back to back. And a lot of people would probably think, what's the connection between these two guys, or why would you have these two guys on? And we've heard in circles of Stevie referred to as young John Force or the next John Force or whatever. And I think you saw the reason why. It's because he shares a lot of the same characteristics as John. He actually sees things the same way. Those two have a lot in common, even though they do things totally different, race two different classes, obviously different eras. Couldn't be any further apart in so many ways, but yet so similar. and they're both kind of preaching to the choir when they're here on the show with us. Stevie even said that a couple of times, but those guys reiterate and reinforce, I think, what we say over and over on this show about what truly matters, what drag racing is missing, what it needs from an entertainment and fan perspective. So just awesome. And just the passion from both of those guys was just incredible.
Do you remember when those guys were at Tyler Crossnose race, Outlaw Streetcar Reunion?
Yes.
And at Lights Out, I believe it was. I mean, Justin was there. He's in the comments right now. They packed the place, to be honest with you. People were lined up around the
I was at Lights Out 7.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw it. I was at the Streetcar Reunion the year that Boosted GT, Murder Nova, I believe Big Chief as well, all came. And I think Tyler Crossno, the promoter of that event, would happily say that that was probably the largest turnout of fans that he's ever had. And that was people that were there. No shade being sent at the stars of Radio versus the World or X275, but a bulk of the people that were on the property were there to see the stars of Street Outlaws. It's undeniable. Star power is what we need. It's what this sport needs more so than anything else. I believe it's our sports. Don't get me wrong, from a business standpoint or from an industry standpoint, it's absolutely our sportsman racers, our weekend warriors, our hardcore enthusiasts, our street strip racers. They keep these businesses open. They keep our industry alive and healthy. But what keeps this sport headed where we all want it to go, that proverbial next level that I like to talk about all the time, it's big time star power like this. It's people who move the needle, that force people to pick a side. To Stevie's point earlier in the show, love me or hate me, don't care. Just pick one and ride. And there is without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind that there were fans that turned up in Brainerd this weekend to see Stevie lose, not to see Stevie win, but to see Stevie lose. And it's just, we need every fan. And that's what our sport needs, in my opinion, to embrace a little bit more, because I think we saw it a couple weeks ago. We had an opportunity to have one of the greatest stories that we've had in years around drag racing, around pro stock drag racing, an epic staging duel between a young gun of the sport, a personality in the sport, and Bruno Massel, a fierce competitor, a longtime comp eliminator racer, a championship level racer. We had an opportunity for an incredible story, but we let something get in the way of a great story. And it's a really bummer of a situation, because listen, I'm not saying that we need to script all this stuff out, you guys. I'm not saying that we need to decide the winners before we start, but we need a little sizzle on it. And that's why Donald Long's Radio versus the World and all of Donald Long's events have been the huge successes that they are, because these things they got a sharp edge to them. I believe our events out in Denver with the World Series of Pro Mod, follow that up with the World Door Slammer Nationals. I like to believe that we're pretty polished and put together folks, but our events still have an edge to them, right? They still have a little bit of a hard edge to them. That's what I see in Street Outlaws. That's what I see in No Prep Kings. And we talk about it all the time. Take it or leave it, man. I don't know that I want to go to a family barbecue every weekend.
Right. I mean, sometimes that's not what you're there for. And we're there to do what we want to do and do it our way, right? We're doing our races, and these guys each have their own approach to it. And, that's to each their own. The variety is what makes it. So, yeah, I don't know if I call it a hard edge, but it's just being unafraid to do things differently.
I agree 100%. And with that, Mike, I will introduce kind of the new segment of our show. It's how we're going to wind this deal down. We have found that for the last several weeks, Murder Tundra, I should be ashamed of myself. Murder Tundra, myself, Mike Carpenter, Carp, we spend about a half hour decompressing after the show. And what we realized last week is some of the stuff that we talk about during this final 30 minutes of the show is like the best stuff that we talk about. So we've decided we do it every year in Indy. At Revel, downtown Indy during the PRI show, we throw a party. We've decided to bring one here to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Murder Tundra, cue the music. Welcome to DI After Hours. Horrible timing, T.
I know.
I got it. What's wrong with you?
What's that?
What were you doing? I put it in the thing. Get ready to cue this up when I intro it.
I was texting somebody, to be honest with you.
I thought that was our time to go get a drink.
It was. I took a drink. It's only 13 seconds, big dog. You better drink fast. You better drink fast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here is the shutdown, the after hours part of the Wes Buck Show. It's a little bit, a little less polished. We're not gonna read off a script, or I'm not gonna ask questions that we've been studying for weeks before we get on here. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody. Boosted GT, Chris Hamilton's in here. Chris probably doesn't remember this, but I actually first met him on an internet message board, MidwestStreetCars.com, like maybe 20 years ago. That was actually my first introduction to Justin Shear, too, Big Chief. I ran a website. I'm going to get myself in trouble here. MoStreetRacing.com, MissouriStreetRacing.com, MoStreetRacing.com. It was a super epic V Bulletin. You guys, anybody remember V Bulletin forums?
Every forum was on V Bulletin.
Dude, it was like, I honestly thought messing with V Bulletin, I remember reskinning my forum, like putting new colors on it or whatever.
Big time, dude.
I thought I was launching a space shuttle. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm like clicking around and like trying to figure out what color I want the text to be and what the subcategories of my forum's going to be. Trash talk was one of them, I think, and then set up a race thing. And anyways, one of my first interactions with most of the Street Outlaws crew was trying to get them to tell me the spot that they were going to race, because I had a little S10 with a small block in it, a couple of stages of nitrous, but it was a little bit of a sleeper. Ran really good, but it was relatively quiet. I mean, it's hard to argue that like a small block in a S10 doesn't, most of them run pretty decent. You know, obviously if it's like a farm truck, it doesn't, but I think it was a little bit of a sleeper because it had a bench seat in it, column shifter, no cage, no belts, just a standard seat belt. And it ran like 1090s in the quarter mile, which was fast back then. And I was trying to get into one of their races. Their stuff was way faster than mine, but they had a whole slew of cars that were like a layer below the top guys' cars. And that was how I first tried to get to know those.
He said,
guys, to be honest.
Chris Hamilton said he thought you were a cop.
Yes, he did think I was a cop, and they all thought I was a cop. It was a huge, big deal, and I ended up shortly after that shutting down my website because I had my website going, and I had just got the job as the general manager of Eddyville Raceway Park, the track up in Iowa, and I remember like, man, this probably doesn't look good. Like I remember what's the IHRA magazine that they used to have? Drag Review. Drag Review wanted to do a story on me because I was the youngest. I think I was 21. I was the youngest IHRA track operator in history, right? I was pretty proud of it, and they were proud of it, and they were going to make a to-do about it. And I thought, dude, I'm like the moderator on Missouri's like most hardcore street racing website. All we do is break the law, and I ended up shutting it down. You're a narc. Yeah, did you say, hey guys, got any street racing going on? I would like to partake.
You told me that story. Hell, because everything you would write was well written. They're like, this dude.
They weren't a fan of me. They were not a fan of what we had going on, dude.
V Bulletin, man, that's a good segue. That's actually some of our first interaction that you and I had.
It was, wasn't it?
Pro Mod Zone.
You guys met on a message board. Think about that.
Yeah. You weren't.
It sounds a little different when you say it out loud.
It does, doesn't it?
Nah, man. But was it ProModifieds?
.us.com
or ProModifieds.us or ProMod Zone?
Yeah, ProMod Zone. I was the one that I really fell in love with. I think it was the one that I was on all the time. What was the crazy guy? Nick, Outlaw Nick. Does anybody remember Outlaw Nick?
The dog,
Jim Raynor. And I actually talked to Jim Raynor on the phone 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jim Raynor. His puppy passed away. I saw him post that on, and anybody that loses a pet, that's a brutal happening. But Jim and I were actually on the phone talking about drag racing. He put a car together. He's got a car coming together that he's going to do, I think, some no prep stuff out there on the West Coast. But those were some really, honestly, I don't know. I don't know how much. I'd have to really think about this, dude. But a whole lot of my life, there's a lot of things that stemmed from ProModZone.com, that forum. I'm serious, man. I met you, I think, via that forum. I met Danny Rowe, who I went on to become extremely good friends with, business partners at one point in time. I met him through ProModZone.com. It's kind of unbelievable, man. Those, I don't know. Pre-internet, pre-Facebook.
Social media. Pre-social media, that was the spot. I mean, where else could you do, set up that kind of stuff or communicate? I remember I used to post press releases in there. And it's really, it's where you talk. You could follow Quick 8 races, like local races, results. I remember guys like Scott Caudell.
Yes.
Post in there. And people relied on that stuff.
You know what I bought from Scott Caudell? What happened to that guy?
He actually lives here in my town. In
Mooresville?
Yeah, in Mooresville. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else in the comments remembers Scott Caudill, but he made these badass VHS tapes.
You can go on YouTube, search all the big drag racing on YouTube. He's still got. There's a bunch of them up there.
Seriously, we need to try to buy all that footage from.
I've got a ton of them on DVD,
dude. Because those, like, I remember, and I don't even know how old I would have been because I was gonna tell this story a couple weeks ago, but then I thought I was gonna sound like a man child, like. But what I wanted to say, because I wanted to set the tone, I remember sitting like cross-legged, Indian style or whatever. I don't think that's politically correct anymore. Crisscross applesauce is what it's called here in 2021 on the floor of my parents' living room and watching my dad's prize big screen TV. I remember watching like the Big Dog Shootout, the North versus South Big Dog Shootout when Pat Musey and Mark D'Antoni and all them guys showed up at Piedmont to do battle with all their local stars, watching Don Plemons' Quick Eights on VHS, like in my parents' living room. And I would watch those videos and just be in awe because the cars were all like way low 4-second players. And in the Midwest, like the baddest ass cars run like 430s and 40s. You know, we were like 3/4 tenths of a second behind in the Midwest. And you just,
it's funny how far all that stuff's come. We take really Facebook, live streaming, the whole deal, because that was, if it wasn't on TV, how else were you going to see those events?
You weren't.
Nobody was there with a phone. Nobody was live streaming them. Scott Caudill had a bag. I always remember his bag. He had tapes or whatever in there, you know, sweating his ass off out in the sun with the video camera, just dedicated to it, man. So
it's incredible, man.
Shout out to all those pre social media and streaming heroes.
I want to say a couple things because there's like a handful of subjects that I had written down. First off, Drag Illustrated After Hours, this last segment of the show, it's off the cuff, it's loosey-goosey, it's not rehearsed. So participate, guys. We got a ton of you watching here today. Again,
are you drinking yet, JT?
I am.
What are you drinking? Oh, Coors Light. I don't have anything to drink. I got some water and I got a Crown Royal here I could sip. But yeah, I've got a couple things I want to talk about, but I want to encourage our viewers here today. If you've got a question or if there's something that you want us to talk about, now's the time. Throw out a question. We may not get to them all, but we'll try to play along. So if you got something that you want to talk about, throw your questions in the comments. I want to talk first and foremost about something. This past weekend, I was at the well, we got two. All right. We got two stories that I need to tell for sure. First and foremost, I want to get your two, like both of your opinions on live streaming, right? And on technology and how it's impacting our sport. To your point, Mike, it wasn't that long ago that you had to buy a VHS tape to find out what happened at the Big Dog race, right? Here in 2021, all you got to do is get on Facebook because our buddy Jay Pro Modder Warren is on the grounds. NC Pro Modder is out there live streaming, and you're able to watch the final round, watch Barry Mitchell go head to head with Jason Harris in an epic final round under the lights at Piedmont Dragway for free on your phone, right? Live as it happens. We also have Flow Racing, longtime friends of Drag Illustrated. We're developing an ongoing partnership with these guys at Flow Racing and Flow Sports. And I'm just curious, what's your two? I'd like to know your perspective because there's a part of me that says, I would love to see a little more scarcity created where you had to go to an event to see what happened. But I also recognize that it's 2021. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's part of the problem. You know, it's a double-edged sword. That's part of the problem is that, you know, you want people in the stands. You want people to go to the track. You know, highlights, that'd probably be great. You know, there's a million arguments for this. You know, Donald said it, you know, that it put his race on the next level. You know, we've heard him say it, you know, on this show. But at the same time, how many people said, yeah, man, I think I'll just stay home and watch the live stream. You know, like I've got a ball game on Friday night that I probably shouldn't miss. Or, you know, we're back in the day where you guys would drive across the country to go to a race, you know, but now it's too easy to say, you know, maybe I'll just stay at home this weekend.
I think that's doesn't that apply to everything? It seems like everything technology and internet related is a double-edged sword to where it's amazing in one regard, but it has changed something or killed something in another way. I really think if you go back, if you on live streaming alone, it's like it's better than nothing. And it's good to have it in one way, but in another way, if you go look at those videos from Scott Caudill that we're talking about, or any of these other ones that anyone's referenced, you know, the production level is higher. The equipment, just even from having a zoom camera, being able to follow the car. He put music behind it. I remember at one point, I believe he was doing graphic overlays with the qualifying order or the ETs, all kinds of stuff. But it's just because there wasn't the need for it to be out there right now, this second, he took some time to go back and actually make this a produced video and then make copies of it and sell it as a DVD. So you lose a little bit of the polish and you lose a little bit of what I think, especially because of how we like to present things and go about things here at the magazine, the way we do this show, all this stuff. You lose a little bit of that and you gain the ability to just watch it right away. And I mean, to me, I'm torn on it. I can never decide if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's both. You know, like,
yeah.
It may
to be
both,
honest, I mean, I think that here's where I'll leave it is that, Mike, you go to a football game every weekend, right? I mean, I mean, you go to let's throw it out there. Mike's balling. Okay. Mike's got season tickets to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Doesn't miss
They're
a game.
cheap, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're real cheap right now.
The Carolina Panthers, you go to every game. There's no chance. I mean, let's be honest. The best place to watch a football game is your living room. I mean, 7,000 camera angles. They got the freaking quarterback mic'd up. They got the coaches mic'd up. There's no better place to watch a football game.
The Red Zone channel is probably the greatest thing ever created.
Yeah, the Red Zone channel will spoil you. And honestly, in last year, we didn't go to any games because of COVID. And I thought, you know what, this will be interesting. It'll be nice to watch some games and not feel the pressure to be there, to go to the game. And it's after like week 4 or 5, I was like, man,
get me to a game. Am I right?
And I actually got a survey from the Panthers yesterday, an email survey, wanting to know. They're always like wanting to improve or want your input on what they're doing. And one of the questions they asked was, what did you miss most about not being able to attend games in 2020? And it had 20 choices, and you had to pick 3. And the 3 that I picked, even though I could have picked all 20, were the ambience and the just environment of being at a live game and making memories and sharing the experience with your friends and family and your loved ones.
I put sneaking back in my waist.
Yeah, that's right. And the tailgating experience was the other one.
Yes.
But that just all alludes to the fact that what are we missing? We're missing that engagement, camaraderie, being there, an intangible that you can't get.
That's the point I wanted you to make, Mike. And thank you, because we didn't premeditate this, but that's the point I needed you to make, because I think that a lot of times these live streaming companies get vilified, right? That they're like, because I'll admit there have been a multitude of races that I have chosen not to go to because I can just watch it on my phone or whatever, and I can save myself $2,000 in travel expenses or whatever. But the fact remains that there's no replacing the atmosphere of a live event. Like, you can have the greatest production that exists. You can have all the camera angles, but there's just an energy. There's a vibe. There's something in the air when you're at a live event, a competition fueled live event, surrounded by like-minded people, surrounded by people that share your passion. So I think for any promoter or anybody out there that thinks that these live streams have damaged our sport, I disagree. The only events that could be damaged by a live stream, in my opinion, are events that are not well run or not promoted properly, because the onus falls on the producer of the show. The onus falls on the event promoter, the track operator. How can you make this an unforgettable experience? How can you create an atmosphere that people will travel to be a part of? And I think that it's just easy to blame it on live feed. But I think that you got to take a good hard look in the mirror and go, man, maybe we're not putting on a very good show. Maybe we keep these people in the stands till 3 or 4 in the morning. Maybe we're not doing this well enough. Maybe we need to re-examine. This is so funny, and I don't know how I got on this, but I was watching Bar Rescue. I love that show. That's awesome. They got a new season of Bar Rescue. Shout out to John Taffer. Maybe we can get him on the show sometime, because I've had thoughts about doing like race rescue or like event rescue, because I go to events sometimes and I'm going, man, these guys need rescued. They need someone to come. Not saying that we're the experts, but we do this a lot. We've been to drag races around the world for almost a decade and a half, closing in on 2 decades. So we've seen what works. We've seen what doesn't work. And I think sometimes, going back to this example from Bar Rescue last night, dude, I'm watching the show and there's this restaurant that's struggling, and John Taffer, his take on the whole situation was they're hiding behind COVID. They think that the reason they're failing is because of COVID. right? But the reason they're failing is because they're doing a shitty job running their business. And he came in and exposed that and helped them turn it around. And I think that I kind of see that same thing at play in a lot of places in drag racing, where you say, well, man, fans don't come out to this deal the way they used to because of live streaming. Why come out? Why buy a ticket? You can watch the whole thing, 3 or 4 camera angles just from your lazy boy. Man, I don't think that's why they're not coming, guys. Well, they're not coming because this deal's a calamity.
They're not coming because your live event.
Cluster.
If your live in-person event is awesome, your live stream will also be awesome, and vice versa. And it's, to me, to your point, it's hiding behind it is not really the answer. I think COVID and these other things have allowed that, but no, I don't think so.
I was just saying it was both. So like,
I agree.
It makes it easy for you to not go, but at the same time, it may pick up a few people that weren't necessarily into that class or whatever, and then all of a sudden they've watched it. Maybe they'll go to the live show the next time it's in town and whatnot. So that's why I was saying double-edged sword, because you're kind of like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't on it.
Daniel Affatato, I'm sorry if I murdered that name. Exploit the pits more. That's the experience you can't replace on a live stream. See, that's another example of what I'm talking about. It's more a live stream. I've always said this term, Wes, is a surveillance video of what's going on the racetrack. And if that's what you want to see, and that's how you perceive drag racing, then you probably love live streaming. But if you appreciate all these other things that make drag racing so spectacular, a live stream is probably going to suck. And I think, like our guests today, John Force and Stevie, you're not going to get the full John Force and Stevie Jackson experience and everything those guys can bring to the table,
right,
from a live stream. Unless you're having them on and interviewing them like we're doing today, which is
how cool was that though? Like, Stevie being on, John Force coming on, him telling that it's his hero, and
I think we may have did a little matchmaking right there.
You know what I mean?
I felt like we did a little matchmaking right there.
Yeah,
I really did. I don't know that those guys, interface that often. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. I'm curious to just argue about the show thing. I mean, we got Big Chief in the comments right here, and I'm just thinking what about the example that they're putting forward with Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings? I mean, everybody watches that show. Nobody misses it. And they go to the event because it's a totally different experience to be able to go there and fist bump Big Chief and listen to him listening to 3-6 Mafia as loud as it'll go or whatever in his trailer area. I mean, it's a totally different experience. So I guess what I want to throw out there is I'm a big fan of what's going on right now. FlowRacing.com. I thought about this the other day. This is funny. I have a friend there, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to shoot him a text because my subscription had expired. And I thought, man, I'm going to get hooked up. Like, I ain't buying, I'm going to shoot him a text and I'm going to get me a coupon code and I'm going to get this for free. And I thought about it and I go, whoa. I ought to have my ass kicked. Wait, I can spend $150 a year and be able to watch damn near every drag race that's going on in the country on my phone in high def with audio.
And support them.
And I mean, I thought, and I couldn't buy it fast enough. I busted my credit card out and I went and paid full price. I mean, we do business with these people. They'd have given it to me, but I thought should be ashamed of ourselves. I see racers spend more than that on nitro nachos, more than that on Marlboro lights, more than that
working that money goes to the promoters, to the events, to the tracks. I mean, it trickles down. And we got to check. I'm
here to tell you,
good job of that. Like, just to that point, like the email I got from the Panthers, the Flow Racing, right after our event, they wanted to pick our brains about what could they do differently. What do we think worked or didn't work? So, I mean, shout out to those guys too
they stroked us a check. I mean, I got to tell you, that was like kind of the high spot. I mean, you put on a race like that, not to remind you guys, but we spent like almost $400,000. Right? I mean, we wrote checks to racers for like $365,000 was our total purse this year at the World Door Slammer Nationals back in March. Shout out to all of our sponsors, all the fans that came out and supported us, all the racers that came out and supported us, C-Tech Manufacturing, JAGS, a ton of incredible partners that make that race happen. But when you think about spending all that money, most race promoters, it's a tough road to hoe, right? I mean, it's a brutal existence to kind of hang your hat and your existence on whether or not you're going to sell some tickets, hope it doesn't rain, whatever. I can't tell you how incredible COVID happens. There's a global pandemic. I can't tell you how incredible it was to get a check in the mail from our partners at Flow Racing after that race. I mean, we got paid by them as a content creator, essentially. And like, I know it's fractional compared to like what the NFL gets from Fox or what ABC pays to broadcast the Super Bowl. But I got to tell you, as a college dropout that is nothing more than a glorified super drag racing fan, to have gotten a check in the mail from someone just paying me for the rights to film my race, it was a real high watermark for me personally. I mean, was it a life-changing amount of money? No, but like still just the notion that we got paid, that they cut a check.
Right.
That was a big thing. And I just don't think I can say enough about what they're doing for the sport. I got to watch Scott Palmer go 3:26 in the 8th mile at 200 some odd miles an hour at Eddyville Raceway Park, my old stomping ground, from the comfort of my own home. Right. I was actually driving down the road when he made that pass, and I had it stuck on the dash like a really safe person would have. And it was just to think about being able to watch that happen. The World
Typically,
Fuel
you'd use that
Ultranationals.
to watch Netflix series
I do,
while you're driving.
Absolutely.
JT and I went to we went to San Antonio to pick up my Corvette that I sold like a few years. It's been a long time ago when we went to San Antonio, but I don't even remember that, JT. We watched an entire Netflix series from Kirksville to San Antonio.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know.
Well, I don't watch it the whole time. You know? I just tune in a little, you know.
Yeah, we're watching
just to wrap up the live stream thing. I just think it's expected at this point in time. When's the last time any drag race happened?
Remember when we didn't have it?
I know, and I'm getting to that. Someone is live streaming every drag race in America every weekend, whether it be Flow or on down to got people with their phone. And because we were not sold on live streaming or just had not really settled on a partner or really figured out how we wanted to present it or do it. Remember when we didn't have a live stream for the World Series of Pro Mod? You would have thought that we needed to just cancel the event according to the internet. I mean, so I
remember when I told you guys that we weren't going to have a live. I remember telling you guys on a conference call, I'm like, hey, made some phone calls, made a decision. We're not going to have.
I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, we're just going to have JT do it. That's what I said. JT can do it. He's got an iPhone 10. He can do it. And that's what we did, man. And hey, it worked out. You know, we were able to survive. But you know what? I think that's actually correct, Mike, that at this stage in the game, it's an expectation. It's literally like
cell phone media, baby.
It's like a straw with your drink. Like, you better have it, right? I'm gonna be mad if you don't have it. So we got some good questions here. I don't know, Murder Tundra, do you have some queued up, or do you want me just to scroll up here a little bit? I'm happy to do either.
Yeah, let's just pick them out here.
All right, let's scroll up. There was a bunch up here a second ago. Okay, here we go. Was the weekend of the 24th? Well, hold on. How about No Prep Kings live stream? Blah 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 blah. Nothing beats being there. Okay, we're all talking about live stream. Murder Tundra, you're supposed to be getting questions ready for us.
Well, they were going back and forth about No Prep and everything else. So
there was so much, man. There were so many comments today.
Yeah, there's no
everybody weighing in on Stevie, weighing in on John.
Yeah, please.
Wes, answer the question everyone wants to know. Will you have Mount Motor Pro Stock at the World Door Slammer Nationals year? I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't know that was the question that everybody wanted to know. But I tell you what, here's a good one. How about the show that the Mount Motor Pro Stock guys put on this past weekend? I really thought the NHRA would have been in a real, I think, a pretty bad situation, worse than they were already in, if those guys didn't show up and put on a show for them. It's great to have. I mean, I think about things differently, but from a promoter perspective, it doesn't sound like a lot, 7 cars, but that's 7 semis in your pits. It makes your show look a lot bigger. It helps a ton.
Wes, what's your take on this? In a situation like that where we don't have Pro Stock, we don't have Pro Stock motorcycle, you've only got Top Fuel and Funny Car. Like I said, how it looked kind of awkward for just Matt Hagan and Steve Torrance to be up on stage and everything. Should the NHRA incorporate the Pro Mod winner and the Mountain Motor Pro Stock winner on that stage in some way, or are they smarter to keep it separate like that, or to not have those guys up there and just have Top Fuel and Funny Car?
I think it's crazy not to have him up there. I mean, I think that if you want to bait people in, because who are we trying to, like, for me, the thing that I think the NHRA sleeps on a little bit is that not everybody's Steve Torrence, right? Steve Torrence has now won every NHRA national event. That is such a unique existence, such a unique life experience. I mean, that's why it's a big story. But the fact of the matter is, and this isn't like a shot at anybody, but J.R. Carr, who won Mountain Motor Pro Stock this past weekend, he may never win another drag race ever. That might have been it. Right. So, and I hope that's not the case. I hope JR goes on to win 100 more Mountain Motor Pro Stock races in the PDRA and NHRA and everywhere else he chooses to roam. But my point is, from a promoter's perspective, man, you've got to be more tuned in to the fact that that may be the only time in JR Carr's life that he holds a Wally and is guilty by association, right, with the stars of the NHRA. So in my opinion, if I'm trying to foster growth in classes like Pro Mod, or I'm flirting with adding Mountain Motor Pro Stock as some sort of traveling exhibition, or if I'm trying to encourage these people to be a part of this deal, I'm looking for every opportunity that I can to set the freaking hook. And I'm telling you right now, if you'd have marched J.R. Carr up on stage with alongside Matt Hagan and Steve Torrence and let him be a part of that moment, and maybe you still have a little bit more of a celebration for your stars or whatever, for Top Fuel and Funny Car, I would understand that. Or maybe they don't get everything, but you've got to make sure that they've got a picture on their mantle standing up on a Camping World NHRA thing alongside two highly recognizable people, because I guarantee you doing that would have created a situation where J.R. Carr goes and builds another car, right? He goes and adds another team. He commits to every race you want to do next year. I mean, these guys, it doesn't take that much to make them feel special, to make them feel involved, to make them feel appreciated and included. And they want to be guilty by association. They want to rub elbows with John Force and Matt Hagan and Leah Pruitt. They want to be around these people. And when you've got a really organic, easy moment to do it, do it. I mean,
they do a good job. If you watch the NHRA TV, they have all the sportsman winners line up on the return road, and Joe Costello
you get some
does
killer
a great
interviews.
job interviewing these guys, making them feel like rock stars. A lot of first-time winners, a lot of emotion there. And I may be mistaken in saying this, but the Pro Mod and Pro Stock guys didn't get that, so they don't get anything.
It's tragic, dude.
They're not on the pretty cool NHRA TV deal that Joe does, and they're not on the deal for the actual winner's circle or whatever on Fox or FS1 or whatever. So it's like,
I mean, this is a conversation
weird,
that I had.
Like, thanks guys, but this didn't really happen. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah.
I mean, and I think I've had this conversation with the PDRA, Midwest Drag Racing Series, everybody. I think the NMCA does an especially good job of this. I mean, every time they have a race, the winners are gonna be up there. They're gonna get their photo taken in front of the big backdrop. They're gonna get the big check. They're gonna have Steve Wolcott, the owner of the NMCA, Raleigh Miller, the GM or CEO of NMCA. They're gonna be there shaking your hand, high-fiving you, because they recognize that some of these people may never win again. They may never win another race. They may never qualify number one again. So knowing that, and I think what that is just, I hold my hand up, is this is all I've ever done. Drag racing is all I've ever done. I've watched my dad, my uncles, literally sacrifice almost everything, their own health, their relationships, their businesses to chase the drag racing dream. And I know how much a little bit of validation, a little bit of attaboy can go for these men and women. And I guess I just think about moments like that and it feels stupid. I mean, it just feels like, why in the world would you not parade Jose Gonzalez up there on the stage and make sure that there's a photo that exists of Matt Hagan, Steve Torrence, Jose Gonzalez, J.R. Carr? Why that photo doesn't exist right now is a failure. It's an absolute across-the-board failure. It'd take 2 seconds. You've already got photographers there, and you've made those two guys. Jose Gonzalez is a very accomplished guy, financially well-to-do, an elite, wealthy dude, so it may not mean as much to him. But for someone like J.R. Carr, who's been like grinding it out for a couple of decades, right? That could have been the thing he needed, because here's what the next part of this, to validate all he's been through. And guess what? He may like being up on that big stage. And he may go, you know what? I love Mount Motor Pro Stock, but let's build a 500-inch car too. I want to go throw my hat in the ring with Troy Coughlin and Erica Enders and Greg Anderson and whatever, that may be what happens, but you got to foster that, right? You can't just wait for these guys to get a wild hair up their ass and go, you know what? I'm going to go build a NHRA car. I'm going to go top fuel racing. But I'm telling you, you go put your top alcohol dragster winner on the stage alongside Steve Torrance.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that going to hurt the prospects of your top alcohol dragster winner, considering maybe trying to run a couple nitro races a year? I mean, these are the moments, the little bitty things that make huge differences, trying to make sure these guys get to see their names. And I mean, is anybody afraid to say that drag racing is a huge ego contest?
Yeah. What? I mean, not only in their life, but in that class or in drag racing for the rest of their life. They'll remember that moment, correct? I mean, they'll always be striving to go back to that.
Can you remember? I remember what I was wearing in the winner's circle at Norwalk when myself, David Janes, Rico Willingham, our little group, Dennis Hagedorn, won Extreme 10.5 and ADRL competition. I remember beating Billy Glidden on a hole shot in the first round. It was like the proudest moment of my life. I end up sharing the winner's circle with you, Mike, and your dad, Charles, when he won Pro Nitrous behind the wheel of that beautiful purple and yellow 55 Chevy. It's a real high spot between you and I. I remember the shirt I was wearing. I hate to admit this, I was wearing like urban camo cargo shorts. Yeah. And I was, seriously, in a pair of Adidas shoes, and I was wearing a Speed Tech Nitrous t-shirt that I'd sweat through 5 times because I weighed 260 pounds. I mean,
I got pictures.
That was there's actually pictures from that moment. I have them. I mean, that's some of my most cherished pictures from my dad and I racing. And that was at like 2:00 in the morning, but fans stuck around. They let them down on the track, surrounded the car in the winner's circle, a bunch of epic photos of my dad like holding the trophy up and stuff. And they even interviewed me. See, this is another thing. Bill Bader Jr. was standing there to interview the crew chief of whoever won that race. That we raced Rod Houck, I believe, in the finals.
Yeah.
And so we won, and then he's interviewing me, and I'm like, that's something I'm unprepared for. But that's just another thing that, again, cements it in our memory, right? And that's why I probably say that's a highlight of our racing career, just because of that winner's circle moment, the interview, the photos. So yeah, you've got to take the time to do that stuff.
I think so, man. And it just feels like a layup. It feels like a layup for all these organizations to make sure. And you know what? Here it is, dude. And I guess I'll call a spade a spade. It's because they don't know that the NHRA. Like a lot of times, the people that are in these high-powered positions, they don't know. They've never done what we just talked about. They've never stayed up all night trying to get ready for a race, or gone without sleep 2 or 3 days in a row, or had a overdraft fee in their checking account because they bought some parts they couldn't afford. Right? They don't know what that feels like. So I guess we can't expect them to embrace it the way that we would, because we've lived those moments. We've experienced
that's what makes it. That's why we're on here every week, kind of offering a different perspective, because we've been there. We've done this stuff. We know our families have been there, our friends have been there. So yeah, it takes that. But for every one of us, there's so many people that are 100% thrilled with what NHRA is doing, and are thrilled with the way this weekend's event went. So I really just think it's a matter of what you're looking for. But I believe that we do. John Force saying the stars are coming. The fact that he even acknowledges that new stars are on the way. It can't be him forever. We can't do it the same old way forever. He even said NHRA has to get the sport back. That was a pretty interesting.
That was, and I don't even know. I think I may have glossed over him even saying that. Here's a great comment from Big Chief here. With all that said, how many non-professional drag racers have made it on television because of Street Outlaws? That validation makes fans and racers of street no prep racing for life. I got to tell you, and we've talked about this right here on the show. To be honest, there's no bigger platform for a drag racer than No Prep Kings. Street Outlaws
someone
is
asked,
in a league of its own.
Why do they get so many more TV viewers and fans? I think that whatever answer you're about to give probably ties into that.
The whole thing is built around storytelling. We heard John Force talk about how he built a career on the back of being a bullshitter. I mean, I feel I'm guilty as charged myself, right? I mean, I'm guilty of the exact same thing. And it's literally Street Outlaws is a story they recognize that they've got to tell a story. They've got an hour or however 47 minutes, whatever it is, with commercial breaks. They've got to tell a story, a meaningful, impactful story. They've got to introduce characters, develop those characters, and weave them through their journey. It's in writing, movie making, or whatever. It's called the hero's journey, right? Introduce a hero, let him encounter some trouble, and let him meet somebody or accomplish something that lets him defeat that trouble and carry on into the world, right? And we don't really get that. We don't get the backstory. We're 100% focused on the hardcores, knowing the points in the NHRA or knowing all the nuances. And there's two things that Street Outlaws have done and No Prep Kings have done, I think. First and foremost, I think they've made it fashionable to be a car guy again. I've said this on the show before, but I remember graduating high school with the aforementioned 1987 Chevy S10 with an aluminum-headed small block in it, couple stages of nitrous, real rowdy cam, whoop-to pulling into school every morning, pulling out of school every afternoon, and I was the odd man out. I mean, I'm here to tell you, I wasn't necessarily cool. Matter of fact, I was kind of weird. I was a little different. I wasn't an athlete, right? I wasn't necessarily preppy.
Was that a wop?
It wasn't a wop. But my point is that, like, here and now in 2000, like, looking back on that moment and kind of feeling like I was the odd man out having a hot rod car in 2002, dude, everybody wants a hot rod car in 2021. I mean, Dodge can't make enough 1,000 horsepower street cars. Tesla's putting out 1,000 horsepower electric vehicle. I mean, these Camaro ZL1s that exist, all these late model performance cars, say the Corvette broke the internet, right? I mean, performance cars and car culture is alive and well. And I think we owe a ton of that to Street Outlaws, because these guys made it cool to have a hot rod, to have a shop towel in your back pocket, right? I mean, they made things like that a badge of honor, where in the past, I think they were something of a black eye. And that's what our sport has needed so badly, is for car culture, performance vehicles, racing to break through, to permeate pop culture. And we're here, man. And I get frustrated when we don't embrace the No Prep Kings or Street Outlaw guys to the level that I think we should, right? This is the high point of our sport.
I don't know how long we're going to go today, but Justin, I know you're in the comments. I sent you a link if you want to jump on and talk about some of this. It's in your messenger. So
I feel like we've got at least a few more minutes in us, but I do want to say that, going back to what Justin Shear's point, what I'm seeing in No Prep Kings that makes me excited is like a whole bunch of racers that most assuredly would not be earning a living drag racing without No Prep Kings. Without No Prep Kings, Lizzie Musey, I'm not trying to be whatever, she's probably answering the phone at Pat Musey Racing Engines, right? She's developing herself to take over the family business, but she's on a completely different trajectory now. She's on the cover of video games. She's a superstar, right? She's signing autographs. I mean, it's her, right? I mean, I even look at guys. I mean, there's a ton of them. Justin Swanstrom, he was on the show with us last week. I mean, by way of his YouTube channel, what he's doing, the work he's putting in there, but the platform that he's been provided by No Prep Kings, I mean, he's apt to be able to earn. I mean, he told us right here on the show, he's earning a living drag racing. There are very, very few people that we've ever interviewed on this show that aren't just burning their money going drag racing. Very few of them are earning money. And this is a group of people that are selling tons of merchandise, getting paid to make appearances, getting paid to do booked in match races. I mean,
That's the old days. It's the old days.
That's
how it was done. That's how it was done. And John even said that today. It was, you asked him, John, did you just decide to start being the character of John Force, or how did that come about? And he said, well, no, who did you say? Vinny Knapp from Englishtown, and a couple others called him and said, hey, I need a car. So-and-so's out, and I know you'll do a big old burnout and run your mouth and sign some autographs and take some pictures with the fans. So come on out. And it just so happened that the guy that got his start doing that and kind of breeding that character became extremely successful on the track as well. And then you combine those two and you have the GOAT. So it's not a secret. You have to have that element.
It's I remember having a conversation with David Rear Morrison. He's one of my favorite human beings maybe on the planet. David Rear is such a gem of a human being. He's obviously an icon in our sport. But we were talking one day, and it was funny him telling me these stories about how much money they used to make selling T-shirts. Like the Lee Shepherd days, at the height of those match racing days when they were doing multiple match races a night. I mean, he would tell me about having, Walmart sacks or grocery sacks full of money, just selling T-shirts. Like they couldn't print them fast enough to meet the demand at these events. And I think about that, we're seeing that kind of over again here in 2021 with the Street Outlaws. You see these people lined up to buy shirts and buy hats and buy gear. And that's a fantastic thing for the sport. But what's troubling, and I think that the overall conversation that has to be had, you throw a name out there like Alex Laughlin. And now he's got a little bit of history with the Street Outlaws, no prep guys, right? But I just look at someone like him and I wonder, I mean, it helped his career. But if he took a step back, or like if we were playing King for a day or treating Alex like a chess piece on a chessboard, and we could make this move and go into Top Fuel, this move go into Pro Stock, this move go into Pro Mod, this move go into No Prep Kings, or approach that world. And the goal was to deliver for a sponsor, right? Sell merch, grow the personal brand, and be able to create something that's going to be a job, that's going to be a career, that's going to be a revenue center. Which chess move are you making?
Oh, absolutely that one. I mean, it moves the needle. We said it, right?
No Prep Kings, right? Yeah. I mean, and how crazy is that? I don't think there's ever been a time inside of the last several years that you would say that. I mean, I don't know that there's been a time since those match race days.
Did you guys see this comment from Justin about don't get me started on the old days?
Oh.
Justin, jump on here, man.
Where's he at? Oh, I mean, he did go back and look at our text, Wes. I screamed this to you in all caps at like 4 a.m. on my way to Idaho or something. It's true. He said all these things to me, and he actually said something to me that I don't know that I've ever said on this show, but he said, he goes, you've got, and he was comparing, and this is way before Big Chief of now. Like Big Chief's like A-list, I think, at this point in time. But I was having a conversation back when it was still like maybe C-list or whatever, not quite what it is today. And he said to me, he goes, Wes, you guys, and he was kind of, I felt flattered that he was lumping me in, but he goes, you guys got the black shirt fans. You've got the fans that are wearing Pro-Line shirts, right? That have Precision Turbo shirts, Speed Tech shirts, super hardcores, right? Guys that have back half cars in their garage, right? Have a top sportsman car. And he goes, what we've got is we've got the everymen. We've got people that don't necessarily have a race car, aren't a second, third, fourth generation racer. They didn't grow up at the racetrack. And he was 100% right. And that's what our sport needs more than anything, is we need fans like that. We need, that's how we're going to grow. And that's what I get frustrated. Like when I watch an NHRA broadcast and they spend 20 minutes talking about tire shake and clutch engagement and fuel timers, I go, guys, we're preaching to the choir, right? I would rather go get to know somebody in hopes that somebody sees it and goes, man, I like that guy, or that dude seems like a prick. We need those moments, but we're so focused on preaching to the choir. NHRA,
it's a tough situation. For the longest time, they did that as a part of their show, but they had supplementary shows. Was NHRA Today or these other deals where they were lifestyle shows or whatever, showed these guys behind the scenes and allowed you to build more of a connection with the human being. And now it's because it's like, bam, 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 we got 100 classes to get through. And man, there's just no time to do that. They've lost that. And so now it's all on track stuff and it's all moving as quickly as possible. And it's just on to the next beer, on to the next beer. So maybe that's the answer.
I got one more thing I want to say. First off is I remember when Big Chief came to the NHRA national event in Englishtown. Shout out to Old Bridge Township Raceway Park, man. Summers aren't the same without going to E-Town. I have always kind of looked at New York City through the lens of Home Alone 2, right? And I had just been in love with New York City ever since I watched Home Alone 2 when I was a little kid or whenever that came out a long time ago. I've always been in love with New York City, and I looked forward to every summer.
Was it the same?
Kind of.
Was it everything you expected?
It was everything I expected. I know there are people that don't like it and don't like the big city. I always tell people, if you haven't been to New York City, you need to go just so you can see that shit like that exists. Like I have like my grandma, I think about. I get sad, and I know that she don't care, but I think I want people need to see that. You need to see that this type of stuff exists in our world. It's unbelievable that humans did this. It's incredible. But my point is, I remember going to E-Town, however many years ago this has been, and Big Chief showed up, and this was after NHRA had like done the ultimate, put their foot in their mouth when they took all the Street Outlaws competition license away, and this was part of their like ploy to win the fans back over, right? We're gonna make amends. We're gonna bring Big Chief out. We're gonna try to win everybody over and show that we're cool by having him here. But anyways, I remember he was hanging out in the Top Fuel pits, and he was hanging out with Leah, and I went over there and we were shooting the breeze, and he's like, where are you hanging out? I'm like, I'm over in the Pro Mod pits, bro. I'm a door slammer guy. And he's like, I'm going to go over there. So he goes over there and starts hanging out with like Steve Petty, Kyle Pettis, everybody that was crewing on Troy Coughlin's Pro Mod car, right? The yellow Jegs Corvette. This dude goes over there, throws on a Jegs crew shirt, and I swear to y'all, there was people everywhere. I've not seen a crowd gather like that at an NHRA race since like I was a little kid and John Force was at the ropes. I mean, it was like a religious experience, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, man. This guy's a superstar. We need more of this in the sport. We need to be able to create moments like this in the sport more frequently. It's a tragedy, unfortunately, that we don't have more of that. I had a second point I was going to make, but I can't remember what it was. That's all right.
It's been a long one, man.
It's been a long one. We didn't get to. Okay, real quick. Somebody asked me about my time this weekend. What I do this weekend.
What'd you do this weekend?
Thanks, Murder Tundra. I'm glad
You're
you
welcome.
asked.
Yeah.
I went to the Midwest Drag Racing Series event, and I just want to throw this out there. I've been blessed to go to a lot of races in my life, gone to a lot of different events, a lot of different tracks. But I haven't gone to that many races this year. Like between putting on our own event back in March and just how much work and how much time and energy you pour into that, COVID, growing, my family's growing. I got 2 kids now. We just relocated to Texas. So a lot of moving parts in my life right now, and business is growing. And I'm going, okay, I wanted to just focus on the important stuff. And I haven't gone to a race like in months, right? I went to a junior dragster race up in Tulsa a couple months ago, but like I haven't been to a big time kind of door slammer, the stuff I normally do like weekly, in a long time. And I remember telling myself, I could go to Brainerd, or I could go here, I could go there, I could do this, I could do that. But I just want to do something different. Like moving forward, as I get a little older, it's like, man, I just don't want to go, like, as proud as I am of going to Indy every year for the last 20 years, like that's cool. But I want to go to tracks I haven't been to, go to events that I've not been to, be a part of sanctions or series that I've not been a part of. I want to see something different. So I had a little scheduling snafu. My dad's recovering from COVID actually right now in Missouri. Changed some of my plans. I didn't know what was going on with him. And I ended up going to the Midwest Drag Racing Series event in Great Bend, Kansas. Brace yourself for this, guys. This is the home of the first ever NHRA national event. 1955. They hold the first ever NHRA national event in Great Bend, Kansas. Mind you, I had to fly from Dallas to Wichita and then drive 2 hours, 120 some miles from Wichita to Great Bend, Kansas. I don't even know. I couldn't have pointed it on a map where I was. I just followed the GPS and I got there. But I just want to throw this out there. I arrived at the Sunflower Rod and Custom Association drag strip, the SRCA drag strip that's been in operation since 1955. And I want to share this with everybody because kind of along the theme of just realizing how lucky we are to get to do this stuff and be around this stuff all the time. This track is owned by the town of Great Bend. It's owned by the city, operated by the city. It is entirely volunteer. Everybody on the property is a volunteer. The lady that was running the tower, I can't think of her, Lisa and Tracy, these 2 gals I met in the tower. I believe Tracy had been there for 27 years, running the tower every time they have a drag race. I mean, did you guys hear that? Never took a paycheck. Uses her personal vacation to go sit in the tower and type numbers into a computer, a green cursor, not even a cool computer. You know what I mean? Like it's unbelievable. The Lisa and Tracy in the tower don't take a paycheck. Their starter, I think he's been there for 16 or 17 years, never taken a paycheck. Uses his vacation to go be the starter at a drag strip. I met a 17-year-old kid, Blaine, that was running the staging lanes. This kid was sunburnt. I mean, he makes me look pale, right? He was as red as your shirt. Murder. And he's 17 years old. Think of all the things this kid could be doing on a Saturday afternoon. But what was he doing? Working for free in the staging lanes, getting cussed up and down by every racer that doesn't like whatever's going on, right? And he's doing it for free, for nothing, standing out there. I go in the concession stand. These folks, these gals in there working the concession stand, there were guys too, don't get mad at me. In the concession stand, they're giving me a soda, whatever. They're so grateful that I'm there, so appreciative that Drag Illustrated showed up at their event. And I'm going, and everybody in there sweating through their shirts. It's hotter than hell in a concession stand, all volunteers. And I remember I just walked out of that concession stand. It's hot in there. I don't like places where it's hot. It was hot enough outside, so I'm not going to stand in some sort of heated room. So I go in there, get my Diet Pepsi, walk out. And I thought to myself, my God, we are spoiled rotten. These people, we get to do this all the time. We get paid to do it. There's tons of people that get paid to do this, right? I mean, these people here donating their time. And I just want to give a round of internet applause to SRCA Drag Strip in Great Bend, Kansas. I can talk a ton about the Midwest Drag Racing Series. They put on a hell of an event. We saw a really scary crash. John Stouffer had a really, really scary high-speed incident. God bless him, that he's okay, his family. I appreciate the good Lord looking over him. Scott Palmer was a really scary situation for his crew chief, Scott Palmer. That uncertainty that comes from seeing one of these cars get into the wall down past the finish line, always very scary. Seeing my boy Joey Oaksis win the Pro Mod final, take out Keith Haney, a turbo versus nitrous battle, Ford versus Chevy battle. Joey O's dad, Scotty O, he won the big one, the granddaddy of them all. He's the last winner on Thunder Mountain, the 2019 World Series of Pro Mod. Scotty Oaksis, excuse me, I say his last name wrong every time I say it. Scotty O won the biggest Pro Mod race in the history of the known universe, the biggest one ever. And to see his son score his first win, all the racing was fantastic, right? Sean Bellemare won in Top Alcohol Funny Car. It was a great, great show across the board. But my big takeaway was, holy crap, man, what an incredible facility. And it's built on the back of volunteers, man. So I just want to tip my cap and give a shout out to all those guys. Cheers to everybody at at SRCA Drag Strip. That was an incredible thing to experience. It definitely opened my eyes and kind of gave me a renewed appreciation for.
Sounds like a story. Sounds like a story in the making.
It is, dude. I mean, can you believe
magazine. That? Has Van been there? He has to have been there.
He has to have.
He's been to every drag strip in America. I'm sure he's got some intel he can share.
Yeah, I mean, and I actually think about like that. The place is nice too, dude. Like they just spent $2.5 million pouring concrete. I mean, I
wonder. I mean, so like the volunteer thing, is it just a point of pride, like like a band of brothers type of thing? Like, I'm not going to quit on you if you don't quit on me. We're all here together. What holds that together?
I think it's that. Question, right? I think they all take. I mean, I got to tell you, you would have thought the care and concern that they took, and they don't do everything, perfectly. They're shorthanded for the most part. But it's like the thing that surprised me, shirts tucked in, buttoned down. So they're all wearing red button down t-shirts, right? Nice shirts with the logo embroidered on them. Everybody's got their shirts tucked in. Everybody looks nice. And I'm going, this is like, you'd have thought you were at Bader's place. You'd have thought you were at Norwalk, right? With the care and concern, the way people carried themselves, the attitude that they took. And I think it's basically held together by just a brotherhood kind of amongst that group of people. One of them told me that if you do a really good job, they put pickles on your hamburger. That's how you're paid. Like if you get pickles on your cheeseburger, you know that you're getting special treatment. And that but to hear someone say that as they're sweating profusely is kind of, it's hard to believe, man. Like here's a guy saying, if I do a good job today, they may put pickles on my burger, and say it with a smile, right? With genuine enthusiasm, man. They did a great job. Got put in some precarious situations. They had a couple big oil downs. They also had that crash with John Stouffer that put them way behind schedule, right? These are guys that they don't want to be there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, but you didn't see anybody bailing out. You didn't see anybody complaining. You saw everybody buckling down, doing what had to be done to get the racetrack ready to race. And they put on a hell of an event, man. And I'll be honest, there's plenty of times I go to races and I sneak out, right? You guys have seen me do the Irish exit. I do it. because I know that if I want to say goodbye to everybody, it's going to take like 2 hours, and I got to go shake a bunch of hands. And I love doing that. Don't get me wrong. But there have been times, long day, I'm hot, I'm hungry, thirsty, I want to get out of here. And, I'll cut out, I'll just vanish, right? Let everybody get real busy and then I'll bounce. But I stayed till the bitter end, man. I watched them turn the lights out. And it was because I just felt like, this is special. And
you had joined the volunteer crew at that point.
Kind of. Well, I was in the tower.
You were an honorary team member. You felt like you had.
I was putting out fires with racers.
To be there for them. Yeah.
Oh, dude. I was putting out fires with racers, announcing on the PA with Tucci. Man, my stomach hurt both Friday and Saturday night from laughing with Al Tucci. I'm telling you, I know there's a lot of good announcers in the game, but the energy and enthusiasm and genuine passion that Al brings to the table, I just don't think is matched. I mean, I know there are guys that have deep, encyclopedic knowledge and are, historians and statisticians or what have you, but just the sheer enjoyment and excitement that Al has and is able to produce over the PA, I've never seen anything like it.
He's awesome. He is so awesome.
And he is genuinely funny. We hung out like high schoolers, dude. We rode around on a golf cart together, made jokes, laughed, told stories. We had an absolute, I literally, it was some of the most fun. I can't remember the last time I called my wife. She called me I think I called her. Did I call her? This would be a great time to tout that. I'm pretty sure I called her. Thanks, Mike. Sunday morning, I'm driving to the airport bright and early. I call Alicia to check in because I'm that kind of husband. I'm that kind of guy out here, and I'm going, you know what? Haven't talked to her in like 7 or 10 minutes. I'm going to give her a call and make sure that she knows I'm okay. Yeah. So I call her up and she goes, well, how was it? Was it fun? How'd it go? And I said, I had a freaking blast, honey. And I can't, she said, what? And I said, I had a ball. Like I literally had a ball. And she goes, Wes, I haven't heard you say that. And I don't even know how long, and it's a genuine thing. Like I had hanging out with Keith Haney, in his toter home, telling stories, laughing. I mean, we just had a ball. Met Tommy Cunningham, who I think is in the comments right now. Owner of Stroud Safety. Shout out to our friends at Stroud Safety. I think we're going to do some really big stuff with Stroud here in 2021 and beyond. But I meet him. He's one of their highest level racers, a real hitter in the Pro Mod division. Got a screw blown 67 Mustang GT, gorgeous too. Incredible family. Mama Sue, his mom and his dad. His dad tunes the car. His wife's backing him up. And incredible group of human beings. But I hang out with him and I'm like, this is our first time ever meeting. And I'd have thought I'd known this dude for 15 years. He was like an old homie, like an old pal. And it just, everybody I encountered, it was like that. Just an incredible environment to go drag racing. And I'm going to make an open call out. Like if you're racing Top Alcohol Funny Car, they've got a great Pro Mod base. They've got a great group of racers, and I think it's going to grow. They've got a great rule package, incredible competition. But that Top Alcohol Funny Car deal, $10,000 to win, 8th mile at events like this, you're mental if you're not supporting that deal. If you're not going to those events, shame on you. I understand that there's points implications in NHRA or whatever, you're chasing a divisional title. That's all well and good. But when you have the opportunity, there's something special happening over there. Just especially amongst that Top Alcohol group, because those guys, a lot of Pro Mod racers know what it feels like to be the star of the show, right? They've gotten that treatment before. There's hardly a Top Alcohol racer alive that's ever been made to feel special, right? Or ever been made to feel like the center of attention. Homeboy, they run Top Alcohol Funny Car last. They the show out there. They are the show. They're as much a part of the show as the Pro Mods. And you put two, the final was a 365 with an 8 to a 365 with a 9. Sean Bellemere versus Chris Marshall. Right? You got backup girls, cars look awesome. Sean's car is like one of the best looking race cars in our game right now. Chris Marshall's car is like red boat flake, paint with flames on it. It's just, and you get those things revved up, rolling in and lighting the bottom beam, all the fumes and everything. I've said this a lot, but like certain bands sound better at a honky tonk. Well, I'm telling you what, Top Alcohol Funny Car, and I think we should forego Top Alcohol. Call it Funny Car. Funny Car on the Outlaw 8th Mile looks good, bro. I'm like a fan. And I don't know that I've watched 100 Top Alcohol funny cars go down the track in my life. And I've watched a lot of drag racing because it just never really spoke to me, to be honest. Like, it wasn't really my thing. I'm a door car guy.
Yeah, you take something like that, put it on a smaller scale. Like, we've talked about that a lot. Like how racing pro mod at night on an Outlaw 8th Mile track is totally different than racing it at, Indy
ZMAX.
or something. Yeah, ZMAX.
It's a totally different deal, man. And they stole the show, put on an incredible show, and I really can't say enough about it. And I mean, I've got like a newfound curiosity and interest in alcohol funny car racing. I did ask, and I'm going to ask this, and we're going to end the show, right? We've been on here for almost 3 hours. I asked this question to Jim and Annie Whiteley, owners of J&A Service. They were there running Pro Mod as well as Top Alcohol Funny Car, as well as they were running Top Dragster with a Top Alcohol Dragster. But nonetheless, I asked Annie and Jim, I said, hey, quick question, and forgive me if this comes off weird, but is there any reason not to lift the body back up after the burnout and just like look at some shit or push some buttons or something? And they both looked at me and they go, well, no, I guess there's no reason not to. And I said, well, you should start, because that's the only thing it's lacking. Because that little bit of pageantry, I mean, I would it's like a dry hop. I would, if I was the Midwest Drag Racing Series, I would write a rule that for safety, right? We're going to lean in and check the pulse of the driver. For safety, we're going to lift the body. Has to be done. The body has to be lifted after the burnout because we need to make sure that they're okay. We're going to lean in there. We got to get a fist bump, push some buttons or unhook something or hook something up. I don't care. Just do nothing. Look at something. Wipe the tires off. But it needs to be slowed down. It happens too fast. They back those things up fast. They put them in the beams fast. Like, hey, they're on alcohol, right? I mean, let's put a little more fuel in this bad boy and let's put on a show. So here, if you're a Top Alcohol funny car racer and you want to start getting attention, maybe a little bit more than you have in the past, let's raise those bodies after the burnout because it's part of a good show. It's part of putting on a show, man. All right, I'm done. We got to stop.
Agreed.
Your weekend sounded a lot like mine.
Yeah.
JT, what'd you do? Hey, how's your back from doing the worm across some disgusting bar floor in Lake of the Ozarks?
That's after hours.
Yeah. My knees hurt a little bit,
And did you pierce someone's nipple?
I did pierce someone's nipple with a bachelorette party button, that says like,
So how did that sort out? Like, how'd that shake out ultimately? Is he okay? The person?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. We went
have you talked to him since?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just said, you got to put some peroxide on that because I used a biscuit for the other end, but it wouldn't go through.
A biscuit? Like a food biscuit?
Yeah. It was left over from that morning, I guess. It was hard. So
you weren't drunk when you did this?
Oh, yeah. It was left over from the morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying this happened in the morning. And I'm like,
yeah,
what?
That's what I took it that same way.
Okay. So you used a day-old biscuit as the backside of the piercing apparatus. I think this is exactly how they do it at Claire's. I can't wait to tell my daughter.
But I didn't realize that he was wanting to wear the button. So then I pulled it out, and he's like, "Why'd you pull it out?"
So then what I
mean? This is why the show should have ended like 2 minutes ago, right?
Well, so then what happens? Do you go again?
No, I was laughing so hard that I just
so
left.
Somebody
find him an earring or something. I don't know.
Did he end up with a piercing, or is it over? I mean, is it being left to heal? You need help.
Yeah, not really.
I think we're all just jealous of you.
We are.
You're having way more fun than the rest of us.
Yeah, he's always having more fun.
My worm isn't as good as it used to be, though. I don't think so.
Really, I would like to have that video.
Yeah,
I'd really, really like to see that video. All right, guys, thank you. I want to real quick shout out to, of course, Stevie Fast Jackson, John Force, Mike Murillo. Hate that we had a bad connection with Mike Murillo, guys. I've been exchanging texts with him here the last few minutes. We're going to try that again in the coming weeks. Was really excited to have Mike on. He's got a lot of great perspective, a lot of great commentary to add to this conversation, and we'll bring him back in. Huge shout out to our guest, everybody that played a part in organizing these things. Of course, shout out to my team here at the West Buck Show and Drag Illustrated, JT, Mike, Dion, Blake, everybody else involved, Nancy, everyone else, Caroline, who else? Nate, Josh, Paige. The whole team, Paige Kaufman. Shout out to everybody involved. Thank you guys. And more so than anybody else, thank all of you for watching and being a part of this, being a part of this insanity on Wednesday afternoons. We sure have a ton of fun doing it. We hope you guys have a ton of fun being a part of it. And until next time, say your prayers and stay shallow, my friends. We will
check out our YouTube channel. We're uploading a lot of new stuff to the YouTube channel.
And we can see the comments. They've been debating in here. We can see the YouTube comments. We actually can see the YouTube comments.
We can see the YouTube comments. JT, take that link I put in Slack and post it in here, will you? The one that is the subscribe. Yeah, everybody, if you would do me a solid, go like the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel. We're a little late to the game on our YouTube channel. We've been developing this show on YouTube for the last several years, but we're trying to develop our following and grow our following on YouTube. So if you'd go give us a subscribe and a like, it would really mean a lot. So thank you, guys. Talk to you soon. We need like an outro. I'll get an outro coming for next week. All right. We'll do an outro for next week. Thanks, everybody. Talk soon.
Thanks.